Alrighty, sorry about the late start. Welcome back to another that's the wrong button. Thrilling installment of Mecha Mondays. I'm your intrepid narrator, Fraggith, and today we're going to be reading, ideally, the final installment of Book 2 of the Full Metal Panic series, out of, I think, 12. Um, the book being entitled Rampaging One Night Stand. Um, I'm not sure what they did to make the nightstand so angry, but they did, and it is a very upset nightstand. Who is the nightstand? Is the nightstand the friends we made along the way? I guess we'll have to find out. So previously on, things aren't going super great for the Mithril gang. Um, for starters, the terrorist organization that Takuma was a part of has snatched him back. Unfortunately, they've also snatched both Chidori Kaname and Talitha Testarossa. This is bad um, for Mithril because Tessa is, of course, their leader, and Kaname is the designated love interest of Sagara Sousuke. Not that he would recognize it as such per se, but the author knows it, the audience knows it, we all know it. It's fine. Um, Even though there is clearly an attempt to at least put in the love triangle aspect here. Um, how well that works going forward is something you'll find out. Or if you already know, you'll know again. So there. Also, Sosuke got shot at by a handheld rocket launcher of some kind. He survives because he dips out of the way because he's smart. He's a clever boy. He's speedy on his feet, and he dips behind a wall or something. That's about it. Unfortunately, the rest of the Uruz team, uh, in this case, I think it's just Mao and Kurtz, yeah, who are generally, when one refers to the Uruz team, the people who have the Uruz call sign, they're generally going to be talking about Mao, Kurtz, and Sosuke. That's just who it's going to be. There are technically other people in that team. Um, I think Kalinen might technically be Uruz 1, but I'm not sure. I can't remember now. I think they made this clear earlier, but I can't remember what it is off the top of my head at this very moment. Um, Surely someone will correct me in the comments. And I believe I got the terrorist organization name incorrectly as A21. Let me flip through because I was in. So the reason I'm late is because I was doing some organization, not for this, but for other things, and I got into the zone. Into the zone. And unfortunately, did not see time flying by. There was clearly a montage fast forward occurring, and I was not made aware of it. Almost as bad as whenever I'm playing the RTS Sins of a Solar Empire, where time just goes away, and I'm like, what's happening? Why is it 5 hours later? I've made no progress. I'm not going to keep looking for it. This is going to be a pretty long chunk, and me starting late is not going to help that. So I'm up against the clock at the moment. So let's get rolling with the... I need a word that rhymes with rolling. That is analogous to moving with the grooving. Rolling with the... Anyway, I don't have time to think about that. It's already one of those mornings. Alrighty, let's get rolling. Chapter 4. The Fuse of Battle. 27 June. 0110 hours, Japan Standard Time. Cargo ship George Clinton, Akami Pier, Koto Ward, Tokyo. The ship looked like it hadn't been used in a long time. The lockers were empty. The bunk beds were bare. In the corner sat an old, dead CRT TV. Tessa was overwhelmed by fear and a sense of powerlessness. Takuma had fallen into the enemy's hands. Now they might be able to use that Lambda driver-mounted weapon. She had to do something, she thought, but no ideas were coming. She was helpless while a horrendous act of terrorism was being plotted just a few rooms away. She'd been a fool. She'd made so many mistakes, had so many lapses in judgment. And because of her, Sousuke was... While Chidori Kaname inspected the cabin's various furnishings, Tessa sat on the bed, clutching her knees and staring vacantly at the opposite wall. At last, after making sure there was nothing in the room they could use, Kaname took a seat on the bed across from her. The silence was awkward. It was Tessa who chose to break it first. Chidori-san. Yeah? You're a very strange person. Oh, yeah? I'd say I'm pretty normal, actually. Kaname responded, gazing up at the ceiling. No, you should be normal, but even in the situation we're in now, you're searching for a solution, Tessa observed. You provoked that woman, and back at the school you tackled Takuma. Those weren't things that a completely normal person could do. Is that weird? Kaname asked. Yes, it is. Tessa looked down for a while, falling silent. She decided that now was the time to say it. You completely throw me off my rhythm when you're around. I did so many foolish things tonight that I normally wouldn't do. I teased and tormented my subordinate and tried to spring into action in the most pointless ways. Spring into action? What do you mean? Kaname didn't seem to understand what she was getting at. In the schoolyard, I ignored Sergeant Sagara's instructions and charged out. I've never made such a foolish decision before in my life. Trying to save you from your foolish actions turned me into a fool as well. Rather than acting insulted, Kaname nodded in remembrance. Yeah, you did do that. How come? Because... Tessa hesitated. Why did I run out to save Kaname, then? Why did I do that, knowing that it would be pointless at best and harmful at worst? Because I was frustrated. Because I wanted to show him as forcefully as I could that I wasn't useless. The reason Sousuke had asked for Tessa's release first was because he trusted Chidori Kaname. That meant, by implication, that he didn't trust Tessa, that he didn't see her as reliable. Given her utter lack of athletic ability, she couldn't claim that his decision was wrong. But even so, why did he trust her more than Tessa? Her trained intellect offered her a variety of logical answers, but her feelings rejected all of them. Those foolish feelings she couldn't fully control. This isn't like me at all, Tessa thought. I'm a better person than this. I should get along with this girl. But despite telling herself that over and over again, for some reason she couldn't bring herself to care for Kaname. Have I always been such a rotten person? She wondered. The thought of it sank Tessa deep into depression. Realizing there was a possessive side to her she'd never knew she had filled her with self-loathing. After all, just what kind of person was this Chidori Kaname? She'd earned so much trust from a soldier of Sagara Sosuke's caliber. She was an ordinary person, yet so decisive in her actions that she sometimes slid into recklessness. She maintained these traits even in situations that would send most girls to pieces, trembling and crying. In the end, rather than answering Kaname's question, Tessa asked one of her own. You truly are strange. You aren't afraid at all? At this, Kaname made a big show of thinking. Let's see. I mean, sure, I'm afraid. It's more just... When I'm put in a situation like this, it makes me want to fight back. Fight back? Tessa questioned. Yeah, Kaname answered. Everything that challenges me or tries to get me down, they're like enemies in a way. Enemies aren't all people with guns. You find them in normal life too. Mountains of homework, morning drowsiness, nighttime loneliness, bullying. She had her monthly agony. She had fears about the future. She had fears about heartbreak. If one of those enemies attacks you, she continued, you have to do something, right? Whether it's grinning and bearing it or fighting back. I guess that's kind of how I try to live my life. But those mundane problems are surely of a completely different magnitude, Tessa observed. Yeah, true. I don't know how to explain it exactly, Kaname admitted. It's just, well, I don't know how you were raised, but even if you're living a normal life in Japan, you'll probably end up in situations where you end up thinking, I'd rather be dead than here. Tessa found that surprising. Really? Totally, Kaname said, half joking, then leaned back against the wall. It started for me back in middle school. I'd just come back to Japan after 4 or 5 years in New York with my dad. I'd transferred to a local middle school, and after that it was the typical story, I guess. I'd picked up the habit of saying whatever was on my mind, so I got treated like a freak. Tessa was starting to see what she was getting at. She said nothing. I know I wasn't exactly a saint myself, but they were just so vicious. It was awful. I really did want to die, Kaname recalled distantly. But you still fought? Yep, she replied promptly, bouncing back. It wasn't the most dignified way of doing things, and I'd be lying if I said I don't have any regrets. Maybe it would have been smarter to run away. But I learned a lot from doing things my way, I think. I see, Tessa said neutrally. Such as? Just lots of stuff. Kaname didn't seem inclined to explain any more than that. Anyway, things did a 180 when I got into high school, and now I'm pretty happy. The school's pretty chill, the people are cool, and I've even got a best friend. If Sousuke'd just dial it down a little, it'd be perfect. She laughed. With that, at last, and with great effort, Tessa felt a small amount of affection for Kaname. A very small amount. Does Sagara-san cause you that much trouble? Oh, he's the worst. He's got no common sense. It's always a string of disasters around him. I know he doesn't mean any harm, but the fact that he doesn't honestly kind of makes it harder for me. Kaname narrowed. Kaname narrowed. narrowed. Kaname narrowed her eyes. It wasn't the expression of someone whose sole emotion was annoyance. He's trying his hardest in his weird, awkward way. It makes me want to help him. Tessa fell silent. Awkward, earnest, makes you want to help him. Exactly. For some reason, Sagara Sosuke inspired those same feelings in her. Tessa was reminded of when they were discussing Kalainen's fate, and he had said, Not even I could kill the Major. I'm sure he's fine. It was a terrible way to comfort someone, but she could tell that he was trying. He was strange and charming and just a bit reassuring to have around. Seeing him appear so detached, yet so earnest, in that moment Tessa had found herself growing fond of him. She wanted to be with him, to navigate him through all of his social awkwardness, and yet it was Kaname who was with him, doing that. That explained it. At last, the answer to her earlier question, why am I so off my rhythm, was starting to come into view. You're right, Tessa whispered. Sakata-san is a strange person, isn't he? Yeah, Kaname agreed. A total weirdo. Their eyes met. For some reason they found themselves smiling at each other. For just an instant they shared the same feeling. Chidori Kaname isn't some alien being. She's an ordinary girl, just like me. The realization took a weight off of Tessa's shoulders. So what about you? Kaname asked. What? You seem pretty weird to me, too, Testarossa-san. Ah, please, call me Tessa. That's what my friends call me. It took her a bit of courage to say that. But Kaname's response was as breezy as could be. Sure, Tessa then. You can call me whatever. All right then, Kaname-san. Once she'd said it, Tessa found that she liked the sound of it. So, what do you actually do? Kaname asked curiously. I get that you're with Mithril, but, well, as I explained earlier. Before Tessa could finish, the door to the cabin unlocked, and a man in combat uniform poked his head in. Get out, he ordered. Come with us. A man entered Andrei Kalainen's room. He wore one of their black combat uniforms, but his mask was off. This revealed him to be a young man with his black hair done up in dreadlocks. "Time for questioning, old man," he said haughtily. Sana wasn't with him. Perhaps she had other business, or perhaps she just didn't want to see Kalainen again. "You get a tearful reunion, too. Bring him in." Talitha Testarossa and Chidori Kaname entered, prodded on by two other men. Each girl had her own reaction to the sight of the heavily bandaged Kalainen on the bed. "Kalainen-san!" Tessa exclaimed. "Who's that?" Kaname asked curiously. "They seem unharmed, at least. My insurance must have worked," he thought. Chidori Kaname had never seen Kalainen before. He'd visited her in the infirmary when she'd been taken on to the Tuatha De Danann after the incident 2 months ago, but she'd been unconscious through all of that. "Kalainen, that's your name, old man? Let's get down to business, then," the man with dreadlocks said before signaling to his comrades with his eyes. They grabbed Tessa and Kaname and forced them to their knees. "All right, Sana said you can't be tortured, seeing as you're already at death's door. That's why I thought we'd get some help from the girls. Know what I mean?" Kalainen held his silence. "First, I'm gonna warn you, I got no scruples about this kind of thing. It's what got me thrown in juvie ages ago." The man behind Kaname chimed in. "Yeah, be careful, old man. He's a major perv. There was an office lady worker in the neighborhood where he lived in middle school. He dragged her in the forest, popped her in her face half a dozen times, then used it for, you know." "Aw," the man in dreadlocks gushed mockingly. "Cut it out. You're making me blush." The men shared a laugh, while the girls lowered their eyes in disgust. Still, Kalainen reckoned, these men were a cohesive squad. There was no chance they would actually do something that recklessly impulsive. Indeed, the man's joking expression immediately sobered, and he pulled out his gun. This was the face of a soldier, not a sex offender. I think you can be both, though. Depending. Circumstances and conditions willing. "Okay, start talking. What organization are you with?" He shoved the muzzle against Tessa's temple. She managed to keep her gaze fixed forward. Perhaps she was mentally fortified for this. "Don't do it, Kalainen-san," she said in a tone of command. "It's not your call, Testarossa-kun," he said, speaking her name in a slightly strained voice. He was trying to conceal the fact that Tessa was actually more important than he was. If they learned that Talitha Testarossa was more than a secretary, they might decide to torture her directly. "Since when do you order me around?" Tessa fell silent, seeming to have decided to leave it to him. "Cut the chatter and answer the question," the man in dreadlocks demanded. "What's your organization? Wait, maybe you need to see that I'm serious first. Yeah, let's do that." Unceremoniously, he pointed his gun at Tessa's leg. It was clear he really would pull the trigger. "Mithril," Kalainen said before he could manage it. "What's a mithril?" the man asked without withdrawing his gun. "It's a military organization designed to check regional conflicts and terrorism," Kalainen strained. "We offer information gathering and training to militaries and police in various countries. If needed, we even take physical action. I'm part of the operations division, and I was doing some consulting with the Japanese government." Kalainen paused several times during his explanation, gasping as if enduring some terrible pain. Indeed, the wounds on his back really were torture. "You in pain? Guess you got it pretty bad before. Poor guy," the man with dreadlocks said, without a trace of sympathy. He turned to the men standing behind Tessa and Kaname. "You guys ever heard of Mithril?" "Just rumors that they're an elite execution squad, not affiliated with any country's armed forces and such," one of them offered. We spread those rumors intentionally," Kalainen choked out, "to help check terrorism." "So dumb," the man in dreadlocks scoffed. "Who'd ever be scared of rumors? Okay, question 2. This time he pointed the gun at Kaname's leg. She stared at the glossy black barrel, face pale. Her eyes welled up a little, but no more. She was far from the blubbering wreck he might expect. I see. She's a strong-willed girl, Kalainen thought. How much do you know about the Lambda driver? The man in dreadlocks demanded to know. Do you have anything to fight it? Well, Kalainen hedged. I'll shoot her. I'll talk. The Lambda driver, he grunted, strained. We... Kalainen's voice began to fade. His back really was hurting, and so were his ribs. You what? I can't hear you. Dreadlock strode up to Kalainen in annoyance. The technology we possess. What about it? Technology that shouldn't exist. Talk so I can hear you, Dreadlocks ordered, or I shoot the girl. Kalainen tightened his throat and flapped his mouth open and shut. One of the other men scowled. Hey, I think he's in bad shape. He might be dying. Shut up. I'll make him talk before he bites it. Hey, old man, tell me everything, or after I'm done here, I'll give that girl an education. You got it? Dreadlocks seized the throat of Kalainen, who lay limply on the bed. What we know is... Kalainen's words faded. The man leaned in close, straining his ears to hear. That was his cue. Kalainen dropped the act and dropped the act. The act! Kalainen dropped the act and grabbed the man's right arm, the wrist of the hand holding the gun, and twisted it unceremoniously. Hey! Dreadlocks began. Kalainen wouldn't give him time to react. He twisted the gun, still in the man's hand, towards his stomach, and fired. 3 shots rang out. The bullets pierced the man's body, bursting in red trails out the other side. It took the other men a few seconds to even realize what was happening. They could do a few things now. Shoot Kalainen, even if they harmed their comrade in the process, use the girls as shields, or run out the door and back into the ship. Those were their 3 available options, but their hesitation left them with none. Kalainen fired 2 more shots from the bed. The act was swift and mechanical, 1 bullet in each man's head, as easily as one might hammer a nail. Without even knowing what hit them, the men sank to the floor. Smoke rose from the gun's muzzle. Empty shell casings landed on the bed. Be careful, you don't want to start a fire. Kalainen's gunplay had left Tessa and Kaname wide-eyed in shock. I'm glad to see you're all right, Colonel, Kalainen said, returning to his usual speaking pattern as he lowered the gun. Kalainen-san, Tessa said shakily, your injuries. They won't kill me, Kalainen told her, but when this is all over, I'll need a long rest. His wounds roared a protest as he sat up, pressed the gun against the cuffs binding his leg, and fired. With a spark, the chain broke. Though every movement invited pain, his body would obey him for a while yet, he wagered. Kalainen then realized that Kaname was still shell-shocked. Chidori Kaname-kun, he said as he rifled through the men's pockets. Yes? She stammered. I need to thank you for looking after my subordinate for so long. Thanks, but Tessa and I only met today. I'm not referring to her. Kalainen screwed the enemy's knife and spare clip into his belt, then ran a quick check on the gun. Kaname stared in confusion, and Tessa clarified. Kaname-san, the subordinate he's referring to is Sagara-san. Huh? But she's not my subordinate. She's my superior. After stealing everything noteworthy, Kalainen stood up. Shall we, Colonel? So it was true. At last, Kaname had to accept it. It made sense to her that this old man, Kalainen, could be Sousuke's commanding officer, but now Kalainen was calling Tessa his superior. He spoke to her politely and referred to her as Colonel. In other words, this clumsy girl had the highest rank out of all of them. Sousuke had been right. He hadn't been lying. Talitha Testarossa was their leader. She was a captain, a colonel, and a commander-in-chief, but something about this doesn't add up. Kaname whispered, while walking side by side down the passageway with Tessa.
What the heck is Mithril's deal? You sent that know-nothing, war-obsessed dummy to our school. You made the girl who can't walk 2 steps without doing a pratfall your commander-in-chief. It makes no sense.
You don't have to put it like that, Tessa said unhappily.
It is a sensitive issue. It is a sensitive issue,
Kalainen, who was walking ahead of them, said with a sort of dry humor. The cargo ship's passages were dimly lit and narrow, and low enough that the tall Kalainen's head seemed in constant danger of banging into a pipe. His V-shaped torso was wrapped in copious bandages, which were in turn soaked with browning blood. Despite the excruciating pain he must be in, though, his movements remained smooth, and he showed no sign of awkwardness.
He carries himself a lot like Sousuke,
Kaname found herself thinking, falling deep into thought. Suddenly, Kalainen stopped.
What is it? What is it?
Tessa asked quietly.
This way,
He answered.
don't speak.
Kalainen opened a nearby metal door and pushed them through. They found themselves in a cramped bathroom that stank of a mix of oil, salt water, and feces. Kaname nearly screamed out of reflex, but Kalainen clamped his free hand over her mouth. He quietly closed the door, and they heard footsteps outside. They held their collective breaths. There were men, several of them, running down the corridor outside. At last they seemed to run past.
It seems word of our escape has gotten out,
Kalainen noted.
Well, it was only a matter of time. I'm more concerned about... Ugh.
Tessa let out a slight retch, straining against the rotten stench.
The ship's cargo, yes?
He inquired.
Yes,
Tessa confirmed.
I heard a sound earlier. It was like a large gas turbine engine, and not the kind used in aircraft.
Generating power?
Power? Kalainen guessed.
Most likely. I heard something like a torque converter.
Tessa agreed.
But it doesn't make sense. It was too large to be an AS's generator.
Could it have something to do with the Lambda driver?
He wondered.
I can't be sure, Tessa told him. I only know it's for a device that requires greater than normal output. And they have Takuma now, so we need to do something.
Kaname looked between them, feeling completely out of her depth.
What are you talking about?
She asked, holding her nose. Tessa looked annoyed about having her train of thought interrupted, but immediately recovered and said,
I'm saying this ship may contain a weapon of incredible power, a weapon incorporating a technology that defies imagination.
Ah.
You don't understand?
Yeah, not really.
I thought not.
Ignoring Kaname's glare, Tessa put a hand to her slender jaw.
Conjecture will get us nowhere, I suppose. Kalainen-san, I'd like to scout out the cargo hold. Would that be possible?
I think it's necessary, he agreed. If they have a Lambda driver mounted AS or something like it, we'll need to destroy it before it activates.
Then let's proceed, Tessa decided. Is that all right, Kaname-san?
Huh?
We'd like to take a little detour.
Oh, sure. Whatever you want. Kaname was, in fact, extremely eager to get off the ship, but she couldn't bring herself to argue. Tessa's ability to talk on even terms with Kalainen, an obvious veteran, imbued the clumsy girl with an all-new sense of gravitas. After checking conditions in the corridor, Kalainen took the lead. They passed through several doors and descended the stairway. They passed down another hallway, then abruptly came out into a wide open space. Ah, Kaname trailed off. This was the ship's cargo hold. It was structured a lot like a school gymnasium and ringed by a catwalk, a thin metal corridor suspended halfway up its towering walls. If it were empty, it could probably be used to hold basketball games. The stinging smells of fuel, burnt plastic, and metal filled the air. There was no sign of anyone there. It was dark in the room, but with the faint light from the windows, they could make out the vague forms of machines of all sizes. Small cranes and compressors, large batteries, storage tanks of some kind. Cables and pipes were strewn messily about the floor. At the center of the hold, or rather taking up nearly all of it, lay a massive machine. Kaname looked at it curiously.
At first, she thought it was a large submarine, but the structure was far too complex for that. It couldn't be an AS either. This was much larger than an AS could ever be. 10 standard-size ASs could fit easily into the space taken up by this one machine. It was so large, in fact, that from their current vantage point, they couldn't even take in its entire scope. Was it meant for water, air, or land? Kaname couldn't even work out that much. The smoothly curving exterior, was that armor? Was dark red. It was made up of a complex arrangement of interlocking parts, and it seemed to have enormous weapons attached to it. "What is this thing?" Kaname asked, but Tessa didn't answer her. In the dim light, she could see her face frozen up in shock and tension. "Preposterous," Tessa whispered. "If it were to activate, there would be no way to stop it. So many people would die. We have to do something."
But we'd need more than a grenade to even make a dent, Kalinin observed.
"It has to have a fuel tank," Tessa argued back. "If we can—" Just then the cargo hold's lights went on. Mercury lamps brightly illuminated their surroundings. Kalinin silently readied himself, hiding Kaname and Tessa behind him. The catwalk was lined with their enemies. Each carried a rifle or a shotgun, and all were pointed straight at them. They lined the opposite corridor as well, and 2 blocked the entrance they had come through. They were completely surrounded. Above them, Kaname could make out one familiar face. It was Takuma, dressed in an arm-slave operator's uniform. She was a little surprised to see him like that. "That gutless wonder is gonna fight?" she wondered. Kaname had seen the power and maneuverability of an AS firsthand. She couldn't even imagine Takuma in the pilot's seat. "I knew you'd come here," Takuma said. "You have many skilled acquaintances, Testarossa-san. Yang-san, Sagato-san, and now the wounded gentleman there. You know how to cycle between men, I see." "And you're very capable of sarcasm," Tessa responded. Takuma smiled and gazed down at the giant machine. "What do you think? They call it the Behemoth." What do you think? They call it the Behemoth." His voice had a monotone quality, as if his interest was only passing. "You're all mad," Tessa retorted. "This thing has no purpose but destruction. There can't be a strategic objective. It can only spread terror, like nuclear or chemical weapons." "Terror is our objective, Testarossa-san." She held her tongue. "Personally, I'm not trying to get anything material out of this. It's an act of expression," Takuma explained. "Very minor self-expression. Within a year, most people will forget about it."
"Like Takechi Seiji,"
Kalinin said, and Takuma and the other men looked slightly surprised. "That's right," Takuma replied after a moment's silence. "That man was like a father to us, and the world needs to pay for rejecting him. That's part of it, but that's not the only reason. You don't understand how we feel at all, do you?" "Of course I don't," Tessa retorted. "Besides, I would never even try to use something like that thing. It isn't remotely practical." "That's where you're wrong. It's invincible when piloted by a chosen warrior like me. I'll spread destruction and death and make Big Sister happy. And then I'll be happy too." Takuma leaned over the railing with a bright smile. There was no particular malice in his expression, which just made it more unsettling. "Anyway, I'd better hurry up and get things ready. I've heard the police are on their way with a squad of JSDF ASs. We can be sure now that they've taken no measures to fight our behemoth, so we have no further need to question you." "Stop this, Takuma," Tessa begged. "It's not too late." "But it is too late, Testarossa-san. I really did like you. But it's time to say goodbye." Takuma didn't give an order exactly, but the men used that moment to take aim with their guns. "They're going to shoot us," Kaname realized. The moment that thought entered Kaname's mind, a roar filled the cargo hold. It was the shockwave from an explosion. The entire ship shook. It had come from somewhere on the ship, perhaps beneath it. It felt like a hit from a torpedo. The floor tilted hard to the left. Various things inside the room slid, rolled, and toppled toward the port side. The enemies on the catwalk lost their balance and had to cling to the handrail. Kaname cried out as she fell and slammed her back against a mini crane. "Hide!" Kalainen shouted as he sprang into action, running full tilt while practically carrying Tessa. Kaname could see human figures on the catwalk readying their guns again. If I stay here, I'll be shot, she realized, and in that instant her body began to move on its own. Half crawling, half tumbling, she began to get her distance. Bullets rained down, and sparks flew from every direction. She let out a series of panicked cries as she moved, and then hid behind the closest thing she could find, a small compressor. The sound of gunshots continued on the other side of the hold. Kalainen was probably trading fire with them. He and Tessa seemed to have retreated in the opposite direction, so there was no way for her to join back up with them. She was isolated. The ship was rocking. Bullets were flying all around her. It was hell. Kaname felt seized by terror, a sense of powerlessness. Yeah, this needed like a once-over by an editor. This is like not the first time it's happened. There's been a lot more of these than I thought. Like, it all makes sense if you're just reading through it, but like the second you concentrate on what is actually written, it becomes problematic. It's been getting better though. So it says Kaname felt seized by terror, a sense of powerless, like an astronaut on a spacewalk whose lifeline had just been cut. But that should read powerlessness. It occasionally omits things like a and the as well, which has thrown me a few times. Mostly I've been able to cover it up. That time I wasn't. Sorry. Kaname felt seized by terror, a sense of powerlessness, like an astronaut on a spacewalk whose lifeline had just been cut. She had no weapons, nowhere to run. What could she do all by herself? What can I do? What? Do. Huh? She breathed. She'd heard a strange voice in her ears. Her heart was pounding so hard she could feel the pulse in her neck. Beyond it, she could hear someone whispering to her. Fine, 999, it'll be fine. I 9, coming. What? She said. Again? The sound of a loud ricochet close to her caused the voice to vanish. Kaname let out a yelp. She couldn't stay here. Desperate and confused, she ran along the wall of the cargo hold. She tripped over a cable, banged into a steel pillar, and nearly fell. The rocking was awful. After managing not to get hit by any bullets, she hid behind a toolbox as large as a desk, took in a breath, and cried, "Why does everything happen to me?" No answer came. Instead, one of the enemies vaulted a piece of machinery and began heading in Kaname's direction. He wore a combat uniform and a mask. He must have known that she was unarmed. Maybe he thought it would be easier to finish her at close range than to keep shooting at her while she was on the run. Kalainen and Tessa were on the other end of the cargo hold. There was no way they'd be able to help her. If she tried to run, she'd be shot in the back. Realizing that, Kaname reached into the toolbox beside her, pulled out a large wrench, and threw it as hard as she could, in desperation. The soldier was hit in the shoulder and cried out, reeling back in surprise from her unexpected reaction. Clong! Okay, you asked for it! She picked up a crowbar as long as her arm and, while teetering under the weight, charged at him with it. For some reason, the man didn't shoot her, but just waved a hand in panic. It was like he was saying, "Stop," but "Take this!" She swung the crowbar at him. The masked man just barely managed to block the strike with his rifle, but the momentum carried and struck him in the neck. The man staggered, but kept his balance tenaciously. "Why, you—" She hit him again. This time, the rifle warped. The man dropped it, fell backward, and slammed into an iron pillar behind him. "Well, you want another whack?" Kaname shouted, readying the crowbar for another strike. Her legs were trembling, and she was about to weep out of fear, but she ignored all of it. The man shook his head and held up both hands in surrender.
You really are full of mysteries,
he said at last. Kaname started. What are you?
It's me, Chidori.
The man took off his mask and slowly picked himself up. As Kaname caught the face in the dim light, she let the crowbar clatter to the floor. Sousuke? On the other side of the cargo hold, the firefight was still raging. The ship's rocking wasn't as violent as before, but now there was an eerie creaking sound moving through the hull. Her head was pounding from the sound of gunshots and ricochets echoing all around. She could be shot from any direction at any time, and it was much too soon to relax. Nevertheless, she threw herself into his arms. She wasn't even thinking, it just happened. She had been so afraid, and she was so happy that he was okay. She couldn't possibly be self-conscious in this moment. She'd just wanted something to cling to so badly. Chidori? Sousuke said. She could sense his confusion. Holding back sobs, Kaname explained herself. I was so scared. I'm sorry, he apologized. I was worried, okay? I'm sorry about that, too. Idiot, Kaname grumbled. I almost died like 1,000,000 times. Just then, Sousuke pulled out his pistol and fired 2 shots overhead. 2 enemies, standing on the catwalk and aiming for them, screamed and fell. Their bodies landed behind a distant compressor. Then, still holding Kaname, Sousuke said, Please, continue. Every now and again, he just gets you. Please, continue. Kaname's jaw dropped. She released her hold on Sousuke, suddenly feeling vaguely silly. I guess it's really not the time for this, huh? I suppose not, he answered. Amid the clamor and vibrations, the two quickly took shelter again. So, Kaname asked, how did you get here? We located you right away, Sousuke told her casually. We infiltrated from the sea. Oh, so what's causing the rocking? She asked. And what was that big explosion earlier? Ah, he nodded simply. That was the bomb we set. You seemed to be in trouble, so we detonated it immediately. The ship will likely sink soon. Sheesh, you don't do subtle, do you? It was merely efficient, Sousuke answered. It will provide a distraction and take out the enemy equipment at the same time. Sensible indeed, assuming they could get off the ship themselves. But you said we, right? Kaname asked. Who else is with you? Mao and Kurtz. Aha! Kaname knew them. They were Sousuke's comrades, and quite capable. The enemy won't be able to focus on us right now. Let's get out of here. Sousuke took Kaname's hand and began to run. The floor pitched abruptly, and Takuma went shoulder first into the wall. He moaned as he banged his head, then stumbled and clutched at the railing. Sporadic firefights were breaking out on the other end of the hold. His heart sank as he realized that the ship was going down. I won't be able to activate the behemoth, he realized. I've lost my chance to climb inside, to move it, to show my power. What was the point of all this, then? Big sister. There was a pain in his temple. The impact before must have broken the skin. There was a little blood. Red blood. My blood. It hurts. Takuma. Sena and one of their comrades came running toward him across the catwalk. Big sister? Takuma asked, bewildered. What are you doing? She demanded. Get in the cockpit. We're going to activate the behemoth. But it's too late, he protested, and I just got hurt. Don't whine about a little bump on the head. It won't stop you from piloting. But it hurts, Takuma whimpered. Sena grabbed him by the collar and pulled him in close. Get inside, she ordered. We're going to activate it. Protect the behemoth. Big sister, but I'm injured, Takuma thought. Aren't you worried about me? Is the behemoth more important to you than I am? I became its operator to make you happy. I endured all those awful things. I never really cared about old man Takachi. I just felt bad for you, because you were the person closest to him. Big sister. Do you realize how many people have died to get you here? Sena asked. I don't care. Don't you realize you're worth nothing unless you pilot it? Stop it. If you run away now, she told him coldly, I won't need you anymore. The world around Takuma went black. I thought I was loved. I thought we didn't need the behemoth. And yet, I'm the one who's not needed. Not needed. I'm just the operator, he realized. I'm another of the behemoth's working parts. That's all I am to her. Understand? Sena demanded. Then get in there. He'll help you. I'll get it powered up and ready to go. Hurry! Ignoring the gaping hole she had just opened up inside Takuma, Sena slid down the ladder and ran over to the behemoth's far side. The comrade who remained with him slapped Takuma on the shoulder.
Get it together, okay? And hurry! The ship's going down!
At the man's prodding, Takuma listlessly began to walk. Sousuke and Kaname dashed to the cargo hold's entrance, where they ran into Kalinin and Tessa. They must have just given the enemy the slip as well. Sagata-san? Tessa breathed in open surprise. I'm sorry our assistance came so late, Sousuke apologized. Ah. Tessa held her breath for a moment, then gave him a pretty smile, which she quickly restrained. She looked like she wanted to throw herself into his arms, but she seemed to hold herself back from that, too. She just straightened up, averted her eyes, and said, I'm pleased you're safe. I'm no longer angry about the schoolyard incident. Her tone was light and breezy. Sousuke was dumbstruck for a moment. Then he said, I'm grateful.
What did you do to her, Sergeant Sagara?
Kalinin asked. Each man had reason to think that the other was dead, but neither showed any sign of joy at the reunion. This was standard fare for them, after all. I... As Sousuke struggled over what to say, Kalinin just shook his head.
You can explain later, he told the younger man. For now, take those two and escape.
Yes, sir. What about you, Major? Kalinin turned back to the hold's cargo, his face pale and haggard. His wounds were serious, and they seemed to have taken a toll on his stamina.
There's something I need to do, he replied. Go on without me.
I'm happy to go instead, if you so order. I'm happy to go instead, if you so order, Sousuke offered.
No, that's all right.
Showing no further concern, Sousuke did as he was told. Kalinin turned back to Tessa.
Colonel, you should escape if you can. I intend to stop the behemoth from activating.
It's too dangerous, Tessa protested. Besides, the ship's sinking should take care of it. You should...
It's just a precaution, Kalinin said, cutting her off. Don't worry about me, and if it does activate, you need to be as far away as possible.
Tessa said nothing.
I'll catch up with you later.
Kalinin checked the remaining bullets in his gun, then turned back to the cargo hold. Let's go, Colonel. Sousuke readied his gun and broke into a run, leading Kaname and Tessa down the corridor. The ship's tilt was getting worse. The hold itself was beginning to take on water.
I told you to hurry. What's the matter with you?
Half dragged by the other man, Takuma climbed up the armor of the colossal behemoth. When he reached the summit of the mountain-like machine, he swiveled the lever at his feet to open the cockpit. The complex hatch meshes slid open with a pressurized hiss. First the secondary armor, then the primary.
Get to it, Takuma!
His comrade shouted over the sound of mercury lamps and metal pipes raining down from above.
Moving this thing is all you're good for, so make it count, okay?
Takuma said nothing.
Well, I can't hear you.
He gave him a light cuff on the head, and Takuma gave him a small nod in response.
Ish, what a freak.
The man spat, then quickly moved to descend the machine. Takuma pulled a pistol from his belt, pointed it at the man's back, and fired. The man started. As he turned around to look at him in shock, Takuma fired 3 more shots into him. The man lost his balance and plummeted down the machine, its dark red armor seeming to drink in the fresh blood. "Don't act like we're friends, you incompetent," Takuma spat, before taking out a disposable syringe. He knew very well where his veins were. Unceremoniously, he plunged the needle into his arm and injected the liquid inside. The ritual was over. "I'm going to pilot it. I have no other choice," Takuma told himself. "I'm a part of the behemoth. This is the only place I belong. That cockpit is all there is in the world. I don't care what happens after this. I'll move that greedy devil however it wants me to, spreading destruction and flames."
Hold it,
A man behind him said. He turned to see a Caucasian man, done up in bandages, pointing a pistol at him. This was the man they had been holding on the ship, Testarosa's comrade.
I can't let you get inside that thing. Step over to me, slowly.
The man held out a hand. His gun was still pointed right at Takuma. But he could sense a deep exhaustion on the man's bearded face. The strain of coming this far seemed to have reopened his wounds. He might die soon, just on his own. "And if I say no?" Takuma asked.
I'll shoot you,
Kalainen told him flatly.
"But I don't have a choice," Takuma protested. "I have nowhere else to go."
I don't show mercy, Kalainen answered, even to children.
"If that were the case, you wouldn't have given a warning," Takuma thought. "Is he being sentimental? No, that attitude suggests—"
"Throw the gun away." Sena was standing on the catwalk just 10 meters from the behemoth. She had a submachine gun aimed at the man's head.
"But you're not trying to save me, are you, big sister? You just want me to pilot the behemoth. That's all it is, isn't it?"
You, eh?
The man said without lowering his gun. "I won't let you stop him," Sena answered.
Activating this thing won't change anything,
Kalainen said. "We've been through this before," she countered. "I'm not out to change things."
Then you sound like a spoiled child,
he accused. "I don't want to shoot you either, you know." This exchange. Takuma felt that he'd heard something like it a long time ago. When was it?
Then don't,
Kalainen said simply. Perhaps the man's exhaustion was reaching its limit. His right hand moved. 2 gunshots rang out. Takuma felt a dull impact in his side. It felt, at first, like a strike from a fist, but the sensation was followed a moment later by a sharper, burning pain. It occurred to him that he'd been shot. From a corner of his eye he could see the man toppling over. A spray of blood had burst from his back. Big Sister had shot him. Whimpering, Takuma crawled across the behemoth's armor, heading for the cockpit hatch. The fallen man was trying to use the last of his strength to shoot him again. Just then the ship rocked. The man bounced down the slope of armor and fell onto the platform below. The ship creaked, and the catwalk broke in 2. Sena lost her balance and gripped the railing, but she was struck by a falling ventilation duct. Crushed under the large pipe, she vanished from sight.
"Big sister?"
I should go help her, Takuma thought, then realized how foolish he was being. She wouldn't want that. Besides, he was injured. Even if he abandoned the behemoth now, he couldn't save her. The nihilism that had been gnawing away at his heart for years told him that she must be dead.
"Goodbye," he said. "I have only one path left to me."
Enduring the pain in his side, he let himself slide into the open cockpit hatch. The ship rocked, the corridor tilted, and an eerie roaring echoed around them. "This way!" Sousuke kept his gun straight in front of him as he continued down the passage. Tessa lost her balance countless times, but Kaname reluctantly supported her. Despite what had happened in the schoolyard earlier, they weren't acting very hostile to him, even though he'd been sure they resented his decision. I just don't understand. Perhaps I made the right choice after all. I'll have to consult with Kurtz later. Those were the thoughts that consumed his mind as he ran toward the stairs. Just as he reached them, he ran into a man with a rifle on the way up from a lower deck. Both shouted in shock and pointed their guns at each other simultaneously.
Oh, hey.
It was a tall, slender man with long blonde hair.
Kurtz-kun? Kaname asked incredulously. Weber-san, Tessa acknowledged.
Kurtz grinned.
Hey, Kaname-chan, Tessa-chan, you're looking well. I'm happy to see you. You both deserve a treat. What are you talking about?
Kaname asked.
Nothing really, Kurtz said innocently. Just changing up my greeting.
Is that all? She asked suspiciously.
That's all. Anyway, it's taken on water faster than I thought. We'd better hurry. Right.
Kurtz began climbing the stairs. Lending credence to his words, the ship had already had. Where did I get already? I don't know. Kurtz began climbing the stairs. Lending credence to his words, the ship had entered a steady tilt, very different from the earlier rocking. The sound of water, like violent currents, began to echo up from the floors below.
You think we used too much powder? Sousuke asked.
Kurtz pondered.
Well, explosives aren't really my specialty.
You never mentioned that before, Sousuke said dryly.
I seek beauty in destruction, the single point of focus, Kurtz defended himself. That's why I'm so good at sniping.
Listening to their conversation from behind, Kaname whispered,
What a weird double act.
At last, the group came out on the deck. They were close to the prow, and they could see the ocean rising as the tail continued to sink. Containers on the deck began to snap their restraints and fall into the sea. As the deck warped further, a container crane came loose and collapsed, falling just beside them. Kaname shrieked.
Yeah, Kurtz commented. Dangerous up here.
Hurry, Sousuke said. As the George Clinton continued to sink in earnest, its prow began to tilt upward. They managed, with difficulty, to make it to the port side. The deck was at a severe angle now, and they were no longer really walking, so to speak. The broadside was just close enough to the pier for them to jump.
I'll go first.
With a lithe leap, Kurtz landed on the pier. He shouldered his rifle and held out both hands.
Come on, you first, Tessa.
It was about 2 meters from the deck to the pier. Tessa hesitated a moment, but with Sousuke's help, she jumped with all her might. Kurtz caught her firmly, and Tessa's escape was complete.
Okay, now Kaname,
Kurtz shouted encouragingly. Kaname jumped without any hesitation, and Sousuke brought up the rear. The four of them quickly got their distance, ran to a large pile of neatly stacked containers, then turned back to watch the cargo ship sink.
Feels like the end of a great evil, Kurtz mused. Needs more explosions, though. The final boss's castle really should go down in flames. It's kinda anticlimactic without it, you know?
What are you talking about? Sousuke grumbled.
But...
Despite having made it to safety, Tessa's expression remained grim.
Kleinen-san hasn't made it out yet. I'm worried. With the way it's sinking... What? Kurtz asked. The old man's alive? Yes. Why would you assume he's dead?
Tessa glared at Kurtz. He put a hand to his chin, not even seeming to notice her look.
This might be pretty bad. That's a tricky spot to get out of, even for someone like him.
I have an idea. Uruz 7 to Uruz 2. Sousuke spoke into his radio, calling to Mao, who was on standby.
Uruz 2 here. How'd it turn out?
The Major is inside the sinking ship. He's probably in the hold. Sousuke told her. Can you rescue him?
Ah, hell! Why didn't you say that earlier?
Suddenly, the air behind them distorted wildly.
What?
Kaname was the only one shocked. Blue lightning shot through the empty air. A thin membrane of light expanded, and then a massive figure showed itself, pouring into existence like ink spilled on a canvas. Sparks of light went flying, and suddenly there was a gray AS kneeling beside them.
It was Mao's M9 Gernsback, previously rendered invisible via ECS. She'd been on standby here in case of an attack from the Savage from before. The M9 shot a V sign to the flabbergasted Kaname. Then it stood up, waved to them, and took off in a run toward the sinking cargo ship. "Melissa, be careful. There might still be a hostile inside that ship," Tessa said, leaning over to use Sosuke's transmitter.
No worries, Mao answered. I'm not about to get beaten by a savage.
"It's not that. The thing in there is—" Sirens could be heard in the distance. Whirling red lights reflected off the nearby containers. It seemed the police had arrived.
Ugh, they made it.
Kurtz clicked his tongue distastefully. They'd probably make it to this pier while Mao was out searching for Kalinin. If the police saw the M9, an AS of unknown affiliation, they might open fire. Of course, small arms wouldn't even scratch an M9's armor, but... From a corner of the cargo ship came the sound of ripping metal. Startled, the four turned to look. Mao's M9 was standing on the deck of the now mostly submerged ship. Something wasn't right. Its posture was upright, but its back was arched over, and its arms were flailing. "What's wrong, Mao?" Sosuke asked.
What is...
Her voice, coming in over the radio, sounded utterly bewildered. There was another sound of creaking metal. Its back still arched, the M9 slowly began to rise into the air. No, it was being lifted by something that had grabbed its lower half. It was a giant hand. The hand itself was about the same size as the M9. No, it was even longer, thicker, and stronger. One of its fingers was the same size as an AS's arm. As the AS's arm. The deck bulged upward, creaked, and let out a scream. The arm's master was about to break loose from the hold. "What?" Tessa breathed. At last, scattering shards of metal everywhere, the assailant revealed itself, towering proudly against the night sky. Oh, I saw you send the message a while ago, Frank Misers. I apologize. I didn't comment. Hello, thank you for tuning in. I switched the cover art to line art of the behemoth. I forget if that's for the series or for... I think that's the one for the novel, but I don't remember. They're pretty close. There's some other line art out there for it as well. Chapter 5, Behemoth. 27 June, 02:36 hours, Japan Standard Time. Akami Pier, Koto Ward, Tokyo. Sosuke was sure it was an optical illusion. Though he was at a distance now, it still took him some time to process it as humanoid. It was so big his mind just wouldn't accept the idea. But the truth remained, no matter how his instincts might protest. The seawater-soaked red armor, the broad upper arms and thighs, its head couldn't be seen from below, the protrusion of the chest blocked it from view. The four of them, Sosuke included, could only stare up at the huge arm slave and gape.
What in the hell?
Kurtz whispered. Sosuke furrowed his brow, his expression intense. "It's absurd," he breathed. He'd seen the thing in the hold before, but from up close he'd been unable to really grasp the shape of it. He'd simply parsed it out as some giant machine. It was hard to fault him for doing so. Who could imagine an arm slave that was 5 times the height of a normal one? Even as someone who knew ASs inside and out, rather perhaps because he knew them so well, Sosuke had never even considered that one this size could exist.
There were reasons why most ASs were about 8 meters and 10 tons. Skeletal endurance, the EM muscles actuators' optimal output, size of generators, covertness, ease of maintenance, efficiency of production, mission objectives, size needed for corresponding firearms, etc., etc. Careful calculations had been done taking all of these elements into account, and that was the size settled on as the most effective. The massive AS had a simple outward appearance, with none of the intricate armor plating of the M9. There was something ancient about its presence, like a mythical giant armored with piecemeal iron sheets. It felt less like a product of technology and more like a clockwork figurine, given life by magic. Gripping the M9 tightly below the waist, the giant AS began to squeeze. Its armor creaked, on the verge of splitting. "I can't move!" Mao screamed. Tessa snapped out of her daze and shouted into the radio. "Melissa, use your monomolecular cutter on the thumb!"
Thumb? What thumb?
Mao didn't seem to realize she was in the grip of a colossal AS. She was too close to catch the scope of what she was dealing with, and her AI's likely inability to identify the enemy must be adding to her panic.
Right now there's an enormous...
Tessa's attempt was interrupted by a new shriek from Mao. The giant's other hand had grabbed the M9's top half. It had turned her machine on its side and begun to twist. Tessa gasped. The giant yanked its hands apart, tearing the M9 in two. Milky white liquid, the drive system's shock absorbent, sprayed like blood from its severed torso, as its upper half jerked around in a series of eerie convulsions.
Melissa!
Tessa screamed. Even Kurtz went pale at the sight. Kaname averted her eyes and grabbed tight to Sousuke's arm. The giant AS, if you could even call it that, held the severed M9 halves up high, as though offering tribute to the goddess of night. "Ho!" A low, muffled sound echoed through the harbor. "Ho! Ho! 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 Ho!" It was a voice. It was coming from the giant. Woofers, installed somewhere on the machine's body, were conveying the operator's laughter to the outside world. It seemed to well up from the ground below, a foreboding sound that sent a chill up the spine despite the hot and humid summer night. The giant tossed the M9's remains aside. Each half hit a separate part of the ocean, raising up a splash in turn. "Mao!" Sousuke was about to rush out, but Kurtz held him back.
You're gonna jump into the ocean with that thing right there? It'll crush you like a bug.
"But
I'm worried about Big Sis too, but we've got bigger things to worry about. Look!"
The giant had bent slightly at the waist to examine Sousuke and the others. The head, previously hidden behind the chest, could now be seen in the dim light. It looked like it was wearing a cylindrical helmet, but the place where its mouth should be was instead home to a line of 4 machine cannons.
I think he likes us,
Kurtz said. The giant gazed at them with hollow eyes. It looked ready to attack at any time, but... Instead, it turned away, slowly rotating its upper half to face the arriving police and JSDF battalions. The officers and soldiers, piling out of their patrol cars and transport trucks, stared up at the giant in disbelief. 3 JSDF ASs, the Type 96, a second-generation machine, brought by trailer, were already activated and on the ground. But they, like the people at their feet, simply looked blankly up at the giant.
Sakata-san, do you have a satellite communicator?
Tessa asked.
My radio can transmit,
Sousuke told her.
Let me use it, she demanded.
Yes, ma'am. For now, we should get our distance. Head for the car. Sousuke took off, running for the car they had taken to the pier. The other 3 followed after, gawking at the thing wouldn't get them anywhere.
What's she going to do?
Kaname asked. Call for reinforcements? Sousuke guessed. Or maybe we need a cruise missile.
Reinforcements? Where the heck would you get?
Behind them, the police were standing their ground, issuing a warning through a megaphone.
Deactivate your machine and come down from there. If you don't, we'll open fire. Do you hear me? Deactivate your machine and...
There was a dull splashing sound. They looked up and saw that the towering giant had set a foot onto the pier. It didn't do more than crack the asphalt below. This in itself seemed impossible. The ground should have collapsed beneath its weight.
Fire!
Like a dam bursting, the guns roared out. Shots deluged the giant with a sound like a raging waterfall. Unfortunately, not even the AS's 40mm rifles could pierce the giant's armor, to say nothing of the infantry's small arms. They just sparked trivially against the right side of its frame. "They're not going to beat it that way," Sousuke whispered as he hurried toward the car. To Takuma, the bullet swarm was like a mild drizzle. The pain in his wound was gone now. He felt elated. It was like he was flying. He could break a standard AS in half like a toy. The slightest flick of his hand could reduce a building to rubble. He was the giant. His consciousness filled it, head to toe. The pathetic assault continued.
Annoying flies.
Takuma whispered, re-gripping his master suit lever and pressing a round button with his thumb.
Lambda driver, function B, ready,
The behemoth's AI informed him.
Let's have a test,
He decided. One of the JSDF ASs had readied a large rocket launcher. It wasn't the latest model, but it was powerful enough to punch a hole in a tank. Mighty though it was, not even the behemoth could endure a blow like that. Takuma concentrated. His will, amplified, altered, some might say, through training and drugs, crafted an image. The image he was sculpting was something like shield. Not just the thickness, feel, and weight of a shield, but something much more specific. He imagined every molecule falling into place. No, molecule wasn't the right word either. What he wanted wasn't comprised of physical matter, but of a power that existed beyond substance. A power that took reason to draw together and manipulate. That was the best way to express it. The proper words to describe it hadn't been invented yet. A JSDF machine unleashed a large rocket. It was heading right for the behemoth's, chest. An image that no one had ever seen, had ever heard of. An image that no one could even conceive of. No one except for him. His mind could conjure in an instant. The Lambda driver gave that image form. The rocket streaking toward the behemoth exploded just before impact. Its scalding hot, highly pressurized metal jet burst emptily against an unseen wall. There was no damage done to the behemoth's armor. It was a gratifying feeling.
That won't work.
Takuma smiled cruelly, then pulled a trigger. All four of the behemoth's head-mounted 30mm machine cannons began to spit fire in a move the machine's designer had dubbed Dragon's Breath. Destruction rained down on the enemy army. One after another, police cars and SPVs were shredded and exploded. Tires went bouncing to 30-meter heights. Trails of burning gasoline spread. Black smoke covered the pier. Men ran this way and that, crying, screaming, crawling. Takuma laughed.
And all I did was blow on them.
He'd taken out nearly all of the police vehicles, but the JSDF ASs, the Type 96s, were still around. One was drawing back, panicking, reflecting the movements of the operator inside. The leading machine still seemed to want to fight, but the knees of the one to its right were knocking. Takuma reached behind him and drew the tachi mounted on his back. This was a Japanese-style sword 3 times the length of a standard AS, made of layered ceramic and titanium alloy. Though a tachi was traditionally a cutting sword, this one seemed more like a bludgeon. Holding the Tachi aloft, the behemoth charged at the three ASs. This required no particular effort on his part, he just had to walk and crush. His first swing of the Tachi smashed the leader machine to pieces. Another horizontal sweep, and the second was bisected. The final machine fell onto its backside, both hands raised. He just casually kicked it away, causing it to crumple like a soda can as it flew off. Takuma laughed louder.
What a marvelous feeling! No one can stop me. No one can escape me. I'm so glad I came here. I never should have hesitated. Now there's no question that I'm the king of the world.
Beyond the mountain of containers, she could see an AS's severed arm fly through the air. The giant must have already taken out the JSDF machines. Flames from explosions streaked the night sky, and shouts and screams echoed across the pier.
Why didn't they just run away?
Tessa wondered. She couldn't help but feel responsible for the tragedy unfolding around her. If only she had killed Takuma in Sosuke's apartment, or anywhere else along the way. If she had, this never would have happened. They might have lost Kalainen, but the enemy would have given up on activating the behemoth and... Infinite choices. Infinite forks in the road.
Would that have been a reason to kill him, though? Could I really have made that decision? No, I couldn't, she told herself. For the first time, I've been forced to face my imperfections. How I dealt with Sousuke, how I dealt with Kaname. I've been made acutely aware of my inconsistencies, my hypocrisies. To think that yesterday I aspired to omnipotence, and now how powerless I am.
Sousuke's voice broke Tessa out of her anguished reverie.
Colonel, the reinforcements?
What?
She asked. We need to do something about that giant, he insisted. What are your instructions?
Instructions? He's still treating me as his commanding officer.
Tessa realized.
I'm sorry, she told him. That's right, she thought. I still have more to do. I can kick myself another day.
Tessa turned the radio on and opened a satellite channel.
Yes,
came the response.
Testarossa here, she said crisply. Put me through to Colonel Mardukas on the Dadanan. On the double, top priority.
Roger that. Give me 5 seconds.
Exactly 5 seconds later, she was transferred over, and her XO, Lieutenant Colonel Mardukas, responded.
Captain, it's good to hear you're safe.
Mardukas-san, Tessa said, where are you right now?
120 kilometers south of the Kii Peninsula.
Impossible, then. The submarine was over 500 kilometers from Tokyo. It would take 2 hours to bring new ASs via helicopter, and they were too far away to shoot them here with emergency deployment boosters. Even loading one into a modified ballistic missile, as they'd done during the Sunan incident, would take at least 1 hour's preparation. How much damage could that giant, the behemoth, render in that time? Just the thought of it sent a chill up her spine.
There's nothing we can do, Tessa realized. We're helpless.
Captain, do you require the arbalest?
Mardukas inquired, his monotone itself reminiscent of an AS's AI.
Yes, she replied hesitantly.
Immediately?
Yes.
We'll send it then.
She was stunned. What did you say?
You'll forgive me for acting in absence of orders, but we have everything in place to fire a ballistic missile containing the arbalest in 3 minutes' time, Mardukas clarified. It should reach you approximately 6 minutes after firing. In other words, 9 minutes from now.
The process of firing a ballistic missile required the Dadanan to surface briefly to open up the flight deck, leaving it temporarily defenseless. The world's largest and greatest amphibious assault submarine, the Tuach Dadanan, was an object of interest for navies around the world. It was a risky move that could lead to their capture.
Mardukas-san.
Forgive me. I'm prepared to receive any punishment you deem appropriate.
Tessa smiled as she pictured Colonel Mardukas' skinny, nervous face.
That's right. I'm surrounded by the best. To give up now would be disrespectful to them. No, you did very well, she told him. Fire it at once.
Yes, Captain. And the drop point?
Let me see.
It couldn't be here. The giant might attack it the moment it landed. They needed a place with more complex terrain, to buy the operator a minute or two to board after it dropped. Somewhere with limited sight lines, if possible. Not downtown, to avoid involving innocents. Somewhere dark. Somewhere restricted, preferably with lots of highs and lows. And the best location possible. A place where the arbalest could use its abilities to the fullest. Where could that be? Tessa was navigating a complex labyrinth of thought, reviewing all possibilities in the blink of an eye. Every location she considered contained elements of uncertainty. Nothing stuck out as a singular ideal. But it's not going to be perfect. I need to accept that and deal with it. I've made up my mind, Tessa whispered, then tapped Kaname on the shoulder. What do you call that building? She said. Towering in the distance, across the water, stood an illuminated building that resembled an inverted pyramid. Huh? That's the International Exhibition Center. The Tokyo Big Sight, I think. Takuma activated the behemoth's sensors. The cameras and infrared detectors, mounted in a dozen locations, searched tirelessly for his targets. He was tens of meters tall. Nothing could escape his sight. He immediately caught the heat signatures of 4 people hiding behind a warehouse 1 block away. Running figures. 2 men, 2 women. There you are, he whispered. Talitha Testarossa and her companions. I'm surprised to see Sagara Sousuke still alive, but I'll kill him now. He pointed a gun at me and threatened to kill me. It scared me. That humiliation. I haven't forgotten it. Yes, it'll feel even better when I step on him. And I'll teach that impudent and vulgar female, Chidori Kaname, a lesson too. If Testarossa dies with them, Takuma told himself, it's an acceptable loss. No, in fact, it's better that way. She only ever looked down on me. She never noticed my affection. Better to destroy her if I can't have her. That's right, he muttered out loud. Plain, unadorned legs, like those of a tin toy, pushed forward through thick black smoke. The behemoth had begun its slow march through the flames. Sousuke and Kurtz had parked their truck behind a warehouse, a block from the giant's stalking grounds. It was a second-hand K truck with Takasawa Fish written on the side of the bed. You sure this is our only option? It kinda reeks, Kaname said, sniffing the air. Now's really not the time to complain, Sousuke observed. Hey guys, I think Colosso's on his way, Kurtz warned. The giant's footsteps had grown louder. The containers and streetlights around them shook each time it took a step. They couldn't see it through the stacks of crates in their way, but they could tell it was coming closer. Did it know where they were? Perfect, Tessa whispered, as if she had something in mind. Huh? Kaname said. What do you mean, perfect? Get in! We need to go! Sousuke shouted, leaping into the driver's seat. Kaname scrambled into the passenger's side, and Kurtz and Tessa jumped into the bed. The giant's head appeared, peering over the mountain of containers. Simple, bucket-like armor with 2 round eyes and a mouth. Its face, reminiscent of an old wind-up toy, slowly turned toward them, then tilted. Get going already! Kaname screamed. Chilled by the giant's gaze, she drummed her fists urgently on Sousuke's shoulder. I know, he said, and the second the engine turned over, the K-truck sped off. As it turned the corner of the warehouse, the weight of its 4 riders caused it to veer wide to the left. Listen, Sagara-san. Tessa leaned forward from the truck bed to address Sousuke in the driver's seat. You need to keep that giant's, the behemoth's, attention. Sousuke couldn't believe his ears. She wanted him to lure the behemoth? To where? And how? Wasn't that suicide? But, Colonel, he protested. Do it, Tessa replied in the harsh, cool tone of command. It's what Mithril pays you for. You don't have to make my safety a priority. I've decided to put my faith in your skill.
With that one statement, Sousuke felt a strange change come over him. It was the unique confidence and daring of one who had been given another's trust.
If you insist, I'll make it happen,
Was the feeling it inspired.
Very well, he replied. Where do we go, then?
Keep straight for now, Tessa instructed. Turn right at the intersection, then head to the International Exhibition Center. That building there. The monorail track will help to shield us on the way.
Of course, an excellent escape plan, Sousuke decided.
The arbalest will drop on the center's western side, she continued. We'll buy you time until you can board it.
You want me to pilot it?
Sousuke asked with a glance back to Kurtz.
Yes, she affirmed. You're the only operator whose settings it recognizes at the moment. In the incident 2 months ago. It's coming!
Shouted Kaname, who was keeping watch behind them. The giant was striding toward them, kicking over street lamps and roadside trees. Though it wasn't running, it was still moving fast enough that it could catch up at any minute. It was just so big. Its stride was unreal. They could see the giant's head turning to face them. Was it going to unleash its machine cannons?
It's about to fire. When I give the signal, turn,
Kurtz screamed.
Understood,
Sousuke replied tersely.
Not yet, not yet, not yet. Turn!
Sousuke jerked the wheel with all his might. In that same moment, the giant's fire rained down. Dozens of 30mm machine cannon shells, each the size of a milk bottle, fell on them at the speed of sound. The force that hit the K-truck felt less like a strafing and more like an explosion. Kaname screamed. Chunks of asphalt went flying, and the guardrail, just inches away, was cast into the air like an old rag. The truck lurched. They were headed for a street lamp. With technique that was nothing short of miraculous, Sousuke got their vehicle back on course. Tessa was nearly thrown from the truck bed, but Kurtz grabbed her and reeled her back in.
Too close, Sousuke breathed. I won't have time to lure this thing anywhere. The next time it fires, this lousy K-truck...
Sousuke, drive straight,
Kurtz hollered.
What's the plan?
I'm going to give him a sock in the mouth. Look, just keep straight no matter what, and keep your speed steady, too.
Roger.
Sousuke did as he was told, driving straight at a constant speed. Kurtz knelt down in the truck bed and aimed his rifle at the still pursuing giant.
What are you doing?
Hush, Kaname-chan, you'll see soon enough.
Kurtz's smile was bone-chilling. His eyes took on the focus of a bird of prey as he licked his upper lip and readied his rifle with a lover's touch. The barrel swayed up and down from the vibration of the road, but it seemed he'd adjusted for that. The course of the wind, the movement of the light. Taking that and everything else into account.
Now, aim right at me, you son of a bitch,
Kurtz said softly. The giant turned its head toward them, preparing to fire another machine cannon barrage. Sousuke felt the urge to yank the wheel again, but he put his trust in his friend and maintained course.
Here it comes,
Kurtz thought, and in that moment he fired. It was a single shot, a rifle round that wouldn't even dent an LAV. Nevertheless, something strange happened to the giant's head. There was a blast like a firework from one of the machine cannons, followed by a pop of metal shards. Then the right half of the head began to spew flame and black smoke. A minor explosion had occurred. The giant stumbled. It let out a low moan and pressed a hand to its injured head.
Bullseye!
Kurtz's shot had flown up the machine cannon's barrel and ignited the powder inside. To hit an opening 3 centimeters wide from 200 meters away in a moving car...
Kurtz-kun, you're amazing,
Kaname said with admiration.
Easy peasy,
Kurtz snorted triumphantly.
This whole time I just thought you were a loser with a big mouth, she went on.
Kurtz scowled.
It's not over yet,
Sousuke cautioned. Kurtz had taken out half of the enemy's machine cannons, but they couldn't expect the same trick to work twice. In addition, the giant immediately recovered from its confusion, let out a roar, and raced back into pursuit. It was running now, arms raised. The road buckled beneath its feet. It was like a tsunami of iron heading right for them. Kaname's jaw dropped. Its massive body seemed to block out the sky. Damn it! Sousuke cursed, and slammed his foot on the gas. June 2:41 hours. Japan Standard Time. Akami Pier, Koto Ward, Tokyo. Near the outskirts of the wharf, onto a ramp lapped by the waves of the harbor, Andrei Kalainen had been dragged ashore. He'd been shot from behind in the sinking ship, but the bullet had only grazed his shoulder. Still, the ocean water had robbed him of blood and body heat. He was so exhausted it was difficult even to move. This time might really be... He stopped himself. Who was it who had pulled him from the water and swam him all the way to this ramp? He decided to sit up and see. Sena was there, lying face up on the slope. Her lower half was soaked with seawater, her pale face turned toward the sky. She was the one who had saved him. That by itself didn't surprise Kalainen that much. After all, if she'd wanted him dead, she could have hit a major organ. A shot to the head would have been easy at that distance. "Do you think I'm a fool?" Sena asked him. "No," Kalainen responded. Then he realized. Her back was hemorrhaging blood. She had her back to the ground, so he couldn't make out the extent of it, but its severity was easy to imagine. She was beyond treatment now. "The behemoth activated?" she asked. "Yes," he told her succinctly. "You won." "Too bad. I don't really care anymore." The voice drifted from her lips, weakly and with great effort. "It was originally planned as an anti-AS gunboat. It was supposed to be loaded with even more firepower to hunt ASs." "But it was too slow," Kalainen said. "Hence the Lambda driver and Takuma." Sena trailed off. Not even a machine of that size could withstand a direct hit from a tank gun or a supersonic missile. In a competition between shield and spear, the spear typically had the advantage. They'd mounted it with that unstable system, the Lambda driver, to compensate, and thus the behemoth was born. "It's impossible to destroy it," she predicted. 40 hours of fuel can't be stopped until it runs out." "Depending on Takuma," Kalainen observed. "I don't think I've been very good to him," she confessed. "His memory is so jumbled. At some point, he decided I was the sister he'd killed, and I exploited that." Kalainen said nothing. "I don't have any blood relatives," Sena went on. "I've been alone for so long." Silence. Explosions rang out in the distance, like thunder from a looming downpour. "You're not going to ask?" she finally said. "Ask what?" "Why I saved you." "I think I can guess," Kalainen said mildly. Perhaps she had seen the shadow of another in him. Perhaps she hadn't been able to completely abandon her bonds with others. Perhaps she had wanted to leave behind someone who would remember her. Any reason he could think of was a sad one. "Always acting like you know everything. I hate it. Makes me want to vomit." "I'm sorry," he said, and meant it. Sena smiled. It was that smile, the one he'd only seen from her once before. "My most hated darling, would you tell me your name?" "Andrei Sergeyevich Kalainen," he answered. "A strange name." Those were Sena's last words. Kalainen watched her in silence. Then, as anyone would, he closed her eyes for her. Her hollow death mask became a visage of sleep. No one would believe she had been a terrorist bent on destruction. "A clergyman. Perhaps you were right," he thought. "I've guided so many through their final moments." Just then he heard a splashing sound. Someone had swum up to the ramp. It was Melissa Mao, grunting and gasping her way through the water. She must have caught sight of Kalainen before, because she didn't seem surprised to see him alive. "Damn it! Thought I was a goner," Mao groaned, then looked over at the corpse next to him. "Friend of yours?" she asked.
Something like that,
He acknowledged. 27 June, 2:41 hours, Japan Standard Time, Ariake, Koto Ward, Tokyo. Kaname couldn't believe how calm she'd managed to remain. She'd been so scared before. It seemed like just moments ago that she'd felt her temples pounding and heard the sound of blood pulsing through her veins. Now those sounds were gone.
Is this it? Kaname thought, with a strange sense of understanding. Is this where Sousuke lives all the time?
Now that she thought about it, it wasn't her first time reaching this state. Anyone could end up the same way, even in their daily lives. You met an enemy and you felt afraid, but you decided to face it nevertheless, because you knew that if you spent all your time cowering in fear, you couldn't do what needed to be done.
The human mind is really something, isn't it? She mused.
There was an explosion, and a crunch, and a lump of concrete came loose above them. The giant's machine cannons had destroyed the track for monorail, technically not a monorail as its cars ran on rubber tires, running over their heads. They were on a collision course. They couldn't dodge it. They'd hit it. No, as they braced for impact, the K-truck skated under the tons of falling concrete by a hair's breadth. The remains that broke up after hitting the road below were kicked away trivially by the pursuing behemoth. It was like having an angry tornado on their tail, spreading destruction as it pursued.
Got it! Got it!
Kurtz cackled, high on adrenaline. From the driver's seat, Sousuke scolded him.
Stop laughing and shoot out the other one. Yeah, fat chance. Just keep dodging like you've been doing.
Kurtz's shot had taken out half of the enemy's machine cannons, and the remaining two must have lost much of their accuracy. Time and again, its shots grazed the K-truck, but no more. Still, the damage around them was considerable. The occasional passing taxi or passenger car was hit by an explosion or a stray shot and skidded and flipped, or crashed into the guardrail. Streetlights and roadside trees were toppled like bowling pins. Asphalt was plowed up, and glass was shattered in buildings along the way. Their vehicle, too, was far from pristine. There was a strange rattling in the suspension, and from time to time the engine let out a high-pitched whine. The outer frame was in tatters, and the windows had been completely blown out. The International Exhibition Center was in sight, but just as Kaname was wondering why they'd come here...
Is that it?
Sousuke whispered. She turned her eyes forward, following his gaze. Just ahead of them and slightly to the right, what he might call 2 o'clock, a cylindrical capsule hung in the air, dangling from 3 parachutes. It was descending from the sky, heading for the cluster of giant silver buildings that made up the exhibition center.
I've seen that before.
Kaname remembered it from North Korea. The capsule was designed to burst in midair and release the AS inside.
Not good, Sousuke muttered. It's completely exposed.
Ho, 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 ho.
The behemoth had seen the capsule too. Letting out its muffled laughter, it changed the aim of its machine cannons. White streaks tore through the air. A direct hit. The parachutes were shredded, and the wires holding it were cut. The capsule, now riddled with holes, crashed into the center with a shower of metal fragments. There had been no explosion, but...
They got it!
Kaname cried out.
No, not yet,
Tessa said, her tone confident.
It would take more than that to destroy that machine. Sagara-san?
Roger, he replied. Chidori, I need a favor.
Huh?
Kaname asked, startled by the request.
What favor?
Drive. Sousuke released the wheel and opened the driver's side door.
What? I'm just in high school. I don't know how to drive.
Kaname argued, grabbing the abandoned wheel in panic. They were nearing an overpass that would temporarily hide the truck from view.
Can't you have Kurtz-kun do it?
There's no time. It's up to you, he said, then jumped out of the truck. He threw himself clear and rolled along the ground, getting further away as Kaname watched. The behemoth, not noticing Sosuke's move, simply vaulted the overpass in pursuit of the truck.
What the hell is he doing?
Kaname shrieked.
Turn, Kaname!
Kurtz called. Kaname, now in the driver's seat, instinctively yanked the wheel to the right. The truck plowed into the intersection in front of the center and veered, tires squealing despite the red light. Fortunately, it was late enough at night that there was nobody there to hit them.
But I can't drive a car,
Kaname thought. She was just about to slam the brakes when Tessa shouted at her from behind.
Keep driving! If we stop, we're dead!
Kaname groaned. Tessa was right, of course. That impossibly huge, reckless AS was still after them. If they stopped, they'd be crushed underfoot, and it would all be over.
This is too crazy, she thought. Should I jump out and run? No, I can't do that now. Besides... Whatever! Just don't blame me later!
Kaname slammed her foot on the gas.
What a complicated building,
Sousuke thought. The International Exhibition Center was made up of several layers of intricately laid out floors, which opened out onto vast interior spaces. He ended up having to take bizarre detours just to get from one floor to another, and many of the routes ended up in shuttered dead ends. In the end, he decided to shoot his way through glass, grenade his way through shutters, and all in all, force his way to the capsule's landing site. He passed in front of a West Hall sign, and, at the bottom of a frozen escalator, he found the capsule he was after.
There it is,
he thought. The hall was enormous, large enough to fit an entire other building inside. The capsule lay on its side at the center, riddled with smoking holes. It was about the size of a fuel truck's tank and surrounded by fragments of metal framework and glass, a result of its breaking through the roof on its way down. Sousuke took the escalator 3 steps at a time and ran to the capsule. The AS should be inside it. White smoke wafted from the bullet holes.
The lever to trigger its explosive bolts should be here somewhere,
he thought frantically, but it wasn't. Sousuke spent 10 seconds circling the capsule, desperately searching, but he couldn't find the panel for the manual release.
Is it underneath?
The capsule might have fallen with the release panel down. That meant there was no way to break it open, which meant that the AS was locked inside. Even after taking a flurry of 30mm shots, the capsule remained tightly shut. There was no way he'd be able to pry it open himself. His gun wouldn't do him any good. He had no explosives and only 1 grenade. Could he use the grenade to turn the capsule over? There was no way to be sure, but Sousuke couldn't afford to hesitate. Every moment he wasted here was the moment the giant would spend chasing Kaname and the others. It could tear them apart any second.
I'll just have to try it.
Sousuke made up his mind, took the pin out of the grenade, and shoved it between the capsule and the floor. He released the lever and ran away. A few seconds later, it exploded. The large capsule rocked. Sousuke held his breath. The metal tube tilted just a bit, then returned to its original position.
Just pretend you're in a go-kart,
Kaname told herself.
You can handle some silly car, though it's a good thing K-trucks are automatics. Yeah, that's right, she realized.
The path ahead was a straightaway with good visibility. If she kept driving that way, that thing would hit them with its machine gun barrage. She had to get them somewhere with more cover.
Turning now!
Kaname yelled to her passengers. She jerked the wheel as hard as she could. There was a sturdy gate blocking the entrance to the center's parking lot, to keep cars from coming in overnight. She couldn't afford to hit it. She turned the wheel again. The truck plowed through the roadside bushes and smashed through the fence. It was a miracle that they didn't end up tumbling. The car rocked up and down and back and forth, and the wheel jerked back at her in protest. Kaname felt a dull pain in her right hand. The rebellious wheel had jammed her thumb. She swallowed the pain. She didn't have time to think about it now. Breaking through all those obstacles had slowed the truck down, and the behemoth's feet were coming closer and closer. It blacked out the sky.
Go faster, Kurtz urged her. I'm trying,
Kaname screamed back. The tip of the giant's toe grazed the back of the truck, shaving off the license plate. The K-truck wheezed in protest, but valiantly picked up speed. The wall of the center, like a warehouse scaled up a few dozen times, grew larger in her vision. She just managed to avoid a collision with the outer wall. The truck's left side scraped it, but Kaname managed to regain control, continuing to rocket around the building's lengthy perimeter.
If we stay here, it'll shoot us, she insisted. Get us inside! Break through a shutter!
Kurtz shouted, pounding on the partition between the bed and the cabin. The behemoth fired. The shots pulverized the wall next to them. Razor-sharp shards embedded themselves in the passenger seat. Uninhabited now, but the place Kaname had been sitting just minutes ago. Rather than chilling, she found it funny. A hesitant laughter leaked from her throat. Her awareness expanded. She felt alive. The flying shards of glass and asphalt seemed to slow, and even though Kurtz and Tessa were behind her, she felt like she could see them. The pain in Kaname's thumb was gone now. She skillfully turned the wheel, yanked the parking brake for an instant, and forced the car into a sideways slide. It felt like the most natural thing in the world.
Gas again. Keep moving. Giant coming. Still okay.
The K-truck sped toward the center's shutters.
I can do it. I can do it. I know I can do it.
Insert your favorite Eurobeat track here. Gas, gas, gas. The shutters came closer, closer. Impact. Her vision went black. The shutter had proven tougher than expected. She hadn't had time to buckle her seatbelt before, so her head had slammed into the steering wheel with enough force to cause a depressed fracture. Ow! And yet, the truck had broken through and come clear into the center. The muffler must have fallen out, causing the space around them to echo with the rumble of exhaust. Despite her hazy consciousness, Kaname kept her foot on the gas, but the K-truck's endurance seemed to have hit its limit. The gears must have gotten fouled up, and she couldn't pick up any speed. The hall itself was large enough to hold a cargo ship. She couldn't see any exhibits, just darkness. A vast open ocean of nothing. Inertia carried them some way through the dark, then at last the car stopped.
Tessa? Hey, Tessa!
Kurtz called out. Tessa was lying limp in the truck bed. Kaname couldn't tell if she was unconscious or dead, but there was blood trickling down her forehead. Kaname's own head was feeling fuzzy. She felt like the world around her was pulling away.
What is this? I've felt this way before.
She heard a creaking from the wall and the ceiling behind her. Steel was ripped, concrete was broken, and moonlight came pouring in. A bucket-shaped head and two hollow eyes. Through a newly made fissure in the outer wall, the behemoth looked down at them, head tilted. All done now, it seemed to say.
No more games,
Takuma whispered after a small, trembling breath. Inside the cockpit, his lower half was soaked with blood. Blood from his wound. His eyes wouldn't quite focus. The letters on the screen were blurry.
You've certainly prolonged the inevitable, he thought, but now it's over. I'm gonna crush you, and the time I wasted will all be worth it. My wound will heal then, too, I'm sure of it.
The AI offered a warning. Lambda driver function A decreasing. Interference occurring in skeletal structure. The machine was beginning to make sounds of protest, groaning and trembling.
Not good. Need to focus.
Takuma shook his head a little and redirected his consciousness back into his body, filling every inch of it. The machine couldn't work without that. Function A restored.
Good.
He worked his machine arms and legs to pry away more of the center's outer wall. Then he took a step inside. The K-truck containing Testarossa and the others showed no sign of taking off again. It seemed to have broken down entirely. She herself was lying in the bed of the truck, apparently unconscious, in the arms of another man, a Caucasian. It was the man who had defied them with the rifle before. Had defied him with the rifle before. He would have to die as well. The driver's side door opened, and Chidori Kaname got out. With one hand pressed to her head, she staggered and grabbed the truck bed for support.
Injured, is she? Serves her right,
Takuma thought. Then he realized something. Sagara Sousuke wasn't there.
Where is he? He should have been in the driver's seat. He has to be there. If I can't squash him, what's the point?
Where is Sagara Sousuke?
He boomed through the behemoth's speakers. Chidori Kaname didn't answer.
But I know she can hear me,
Takuma thought furiously.
Speak, he demanded. Where has Sagara Sousuke gone?
The ant-sized Chidori Kaname took a shaky step forward and looked up at Takuma. She was trying to say something. He turned his machine's high-sensitivity directional microphone toward her.
The hell should I know, idiot? Why don't you ask your big sister?
Takuma's complexion purpled.
Fine then. You can die. I was a fool to even ask.
He turned his head-mounted machine cannons toward her and the others. They tensed up, as if resigned to their fate.
Perhaps it's for the best that Testarossa is unconscious. I'll tear them to shreds and then step on them. Yes, there won't be a single glob of flesh remaining. Die,
Takuma said simply and squeezed the trigger. He felt a powerful impact. His head snapped hard to the right. It wasn't recoil from the cannons. Something else had... Takuma was baffled. His head had taken fire from the side. And it wasn't simply machine gun fire. It was bigger. Yes, like an AS.
You called?
Said a voice. Takuma turned his head. On the roof of the exhibition center's north side, kneeling in the moonlight, was a lone AS. It held a short-barreled shot cannon in one hand, which it had pointed at the behemoth.
What?
Its body was pure white, its silhouette powerful yet elegant. It looked less like a weapon and more like an object of worship. Where its mouth would be was a large hardpoint for holding a weapon, bringing to mind a ninja with a scroll in its mouth.
Licking your chops in front of your prey. It's a third-rate move,
came a voice from its external speakers. The voice of Sagara Sousuke.
What did you say?
Takuma demanded.
I'll take you on. Come and try me.
The white AS, its shot cannon still pointed, beckoned him with just the index finger of its other hand, like it was mocking him.
Who does he think he is? He thinks he can beat me with that minuscule machine?
A dark fire began to burn in Takuma's chest.
Very well, then,
he said coldly. The behemoth turned and charged the white AS. He'd made it just in time. Safe inside the cockpit of the ARX-7 Arbalest, Sousuke breathed a sigh of relief. The grenade had failed to move the capsule containing the machine, but it must have nudged the explosive bolts just past the threshold. Just as Sousuke was ready to sink into despair, they had activated, and the capsule's outer plates had gone flying. He had been dumbstruck, naturally. Inside, the Arbalest was safe and sound. It had taken hits in places, but nothing was compromised, thanks to its cutting-edge armor. The drive system had a few complaints about the damage from the fall, but that was it. The enormous AS, the behemoth, tore through the center on its way toward him. It was surprisingly nimble for its size. "Proximity alert!" shouted Owl, the Arbalest's AI. I know, Sousuke thought. The approaching enemy machine, rushing toward him with arms outstretched like a hostile tsunami, was taking up the entirety of his screen. Silently, Sousuke braced the shot cannon with both of his machine's arms to reduce recoil, and pulled the trigger. The Arbalest's palms transmitted a high-voltage percussion signal to the shot cannon, causing it to fire on full automatic. The rat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat echoed through the air until he'd emptied its entire stock. Any one of the depleted uranium APF-SDSs could destroy an armored truck with one shot, and he'd fired 6 in all, but it was naive of him to think that that would be enough. The air in front of the behemoth warped. An invisible wall repelled all of his shells, causing each of the 6 shots to burst into futile sparks. Sousuke was stunned. A giant arm was swinging down. The arbalest just managed to dodge it with a leap to the side. The hit tore through a part of the roof, sending more fragments and dust showering down. Is this... Sousuke recognized it. 2 months ago, he'd been in combat with an AS that had possessed the same powers. Its so-called lambda driver let it create strange force fields just like that. He didn't know how it worked exactly, but it was apparently capable of repelling any and all physical attacks. Rolling down the roof of the center, the arbalest pulled from its underarm equipment rack an anti-tank dagger, a powerful throwing knife that came packed with a shaped charge. He threw it with a whip-like underhand, aiming right at the behemoth's neck. But the dagger, again, detonated without contact. Another deflection. I'll need more, he thought. Ho, ho! The behemoth laughed as it fired its head-mounted machine cannons. 30mm shells rained down from the sky. The arbalest weaved through the barrage. If the K-truck could do it, this machine certainly could, then stuck another clip into its spent shot cannon. Projectiles won't work on it, Sousuke realized. Just how am I supposed to beat it, then? It's back, Kaname thought. This sensation, this dark, heavy, strange feeling of floating. How many times has it been now? She'd found herself here several times in these last 2 months. Sometimes it was just before she woke up in the morning, sometimes during class, while she was resting, in the bath, and a few other times. She hadn't told anyone, not Kyoko, not Sousuke. If someone pointed it out, she'd just waved it off with, I'm not feeling well. But that wasn't the real reason. It's here. Is it because I decided he needed it? When did I think that? It's back. Back. It's back. Back. Somewhere inside of her, something was pushing its way to the fore, something with the power of words. If she let it run rampant, it would completely take her over. A whispering voice. Calling, ling, you called. It sounds just like my voice, Kaname thought. And then, a voice just like mine, mine, as her thoughts and the voice blended together. Shut up, she thought frantically. Shut up, up. Get out, get out. Die, hey, die, the voice went on. Shut up, she thought at it again. Shut up, really? Really? Need, don't you? The voice responded. Yes, I need you, Kaname admitted. You taught me that, didn't you? Sousuke will die unless you do something. He'll die. Poor baby. Why can't you just talk normally? Kaname demanded. Let me talk then. Open up. Surrender. Go on and die, the voice coaxed. Just a little. Kaname clutched at her head, clamped a hand to her mouth, tore at her shirt. Don't get smart. Just tell me, Kaname thought back. What is it about that giant? What kills him? What should he do? Don't you feel sick? The voice replied. Yeah, I feel awful. Now answer me. I won't lose. Won't lose. Kaname winced. Can't do it. Kaname, you can't do it, dummy, the voice told her. That's enough! Summoning an animalistic rage, Kaname bore her fangs to the presence. It retreated, cowed, and sulked to her. No need to get so mad. No need. I won't do anything. I'm not bad.
Strange, she thought. Is it scared? She was about to scream like a wild beast to hurt it more when... Stop it, Kaname-san! This, too, was a voice just like hers. But it was different. It was someone else's. Whose? Yes, that bitch is here, come to interrupt. The first voice sulked. Try to tempt her again, and I won't show you any mercy, warned the second. Pfft, I'm here. I'm still here. Here, the first voice said. We won't need you, the second voice told the first one, because I'm here. No, wrong. That's wrong. You're wrong. Go away. The second voice commanded. It went away. The first voice, at least. The second one, the newer one, proceeded to speak to her. Kaname-san, Kaname-san. What is it? Kaname demanded suspiciously. Who are you? Never mind who I am, the voice told her. I have a favor to ask of you. A favor? Tell him something. Tell who? Kaname asked. And what? Use the lambda driver to aim at the giant's back, at one of the cooling devices, the voice advised. Huh? She was confused. One of the enemy lambda driver cooling. The voice trailed off. A fragmented image appeared in her mind and then vanished. Kaname just sat there in silence. Then, all of a sudden, the world seemed to snap back into place. Streams of light in the dark, the caved-in roof of the center, the K-truck, whose engine had breathed its last. She could hear gunfire coming from somewhere. Sousuke was fighting off in the distance. Kurtz Weber had seized her by the shoulders, his expression serious. He didn't have his usual playboy air. His eyes were so blue that they made even Kaname's heart skip a beat. What is it? She stammered. Huh? Kurtz said, blinking. He was back to his usual idiocy immediately. His grip on her relaxed, and he let out a sigh of relief. Whew, you're back. What is it? Did I do it again? Yeah, no matter what I did, you wouldn't respond, Kurtz admitted. You kept muttering, then out of nowhere you shouted, Stop it, Kaname-san! Scared the hell out of me. She wondered what he meant by no matter what I did, but she forced herself not to think about it. It was likely the reason her cheeks stung, though. Tessa was lying in the bed of the K-truck. She seemed to be alive. Kaname remembered what she'd seen, rather what she'd heard. Had that been Tessa's voice, or something else? She told Kurtz what she'd learned. They had to use the lambda driver, somehow, against a cooling device on the giant's back. It's lambda something. She didn't know what it meant. All she knew was that it was important. Very important. The giant's back. Maybe once she saw it, it would make sense. Hey, what the heck am I thinking? Kaname wondered. This was all way too dangerous. If that giant saw her, it would stomp on her like a bug. Plus, they didn't have a car, so if it came after them now, there'd be no way to escape it. Did she want to get squashed underfoot? She could get hit by stray fire, too. And what if the building collapsed on her? She'd die. She'd be seriously dead. This has nothing to do with me. Why should I put myself in danger? I've already been through so much. I've done enough, haven't I? What I should be doing is hiding. That's right. Just call it off. She told herself frantically, even though she already had her conclusion. Her conclusion. I mean, he's in danger, and he needs me. Then there's how I feel. It's not like his relationship with her changes that. I really don't want him to die. I don't. I really, really don't. Which means I'd better go and do it. Ugh, I hate this! Darn it! She moaned. Fear was a nasty thing. The minute you let your guard down, it reared its head again. She cleared away the cobwebs, then turned to Kurtz and held out her right hand. She repeated the line she'd said once before. Kurtz-kun, give me your transmitter. The behemoth drew the huge tachi from its back and swung it sideways at the arbalest. The bludgeon, which was as long as a transmission tower, tore through the air.
Sousuke braced himself, then jumped. The sword swept past, just beneath his machine's toes. He turned the arbalest over in midair, popping a shot cannon blast at the enemy's head in the process. Its movement and fire control systems made such acrobatic shots possible, but once again the shell bounced off. It's like there's nothing I can do, he fumed to himself. The barrier came from the Lambda driver. Did it have any limits? Was there any way to nullify it? The Tachi came streaking down from the sky. Sousuke dodged it and called to his AI. Al!
Yes, Sergeant?
We've got a Lambda driver too, right?
Affirmative.
Yes, his arbalest was mounted with a similar device. Sousuke was vague on how it worked or what it could do, and he had never gotten a proper explanation on what it was, but... Assuming the enemy has a Lambda driver too, he asked, is there some way we could fight it? There was a brief silence.
Unknown.
Not again. Some stupid classification settings were blocking the explanation. I'm requesting the information as an NCO in the field, Sousuke yelled.
Request noted, but answer unknown.
It must really not know. Even the AI, Al, knew nothing about the Lambda driver. Try to remember what happened before, Sousuke told himself. Your fight against Gowron's AS 2 months ago, when we were escaping enemy territory. He'd followed Kaname's advice and imagined pouring his will into the shot as he fired the shot cannon. The Lambda driver must have activated in that instant and cancelled out the enemy's force field. It's worth a try, he thought. He let out a long breath. He stood his machine stock still on the roof, aimed his gun, and concentrated. Stay calm. Don't tell yourself it's stupid. Tell yourself that this shot will break through his shield. Believe it. Yes, just like last time. Tearing through the exhibition center's roof, the behemoth approached. Aim right at its head. Imagine it. Let's go, Sousuke whispered. He pulled the trigger. The muzzle spat flame. The shot fired. The air around the arbalest rippled for a second. Some kind of alarm went off in the cockpit, and a small triangle symbol flashed in a corner of the screen. Did I do it? He wondered. The shell he had fired The shell he had fired stopped in front of the behemoth, but it didn't break apart like before. It held its shape. It was a strange sight, the arrow-like AP round slowly but surely forcing its way forward, while a low, eerie throbbing rang out. It was like a pair of invisible hands had grabbed the shell, and the two were now battling it out. But soon enough, there was a pop, and the shell seemed to break through. It flew smack into the behemoth's neck. Did I make it? Sousuke wondered. Moving his machine back quickly, he surveyed the result of the exchange. Smoke was rising from the giant's neck, but there was no change beyond that. Nothing? Sousuke asked in despair. The hit had landed, but the damage done was minor. The enemy was too big. It was like expecting to sink a battleship with a single shell. The behemoth reeled for just a moment, then immediately turned back to the arbalest. Just as they made it to the end of the center, a 2-meter-long piece of metal frame flew at them. It grazed Kaname's nose and impaled itself in the ground, causing her to cry out in panic. They were close to the parking lot side, where the behemoth and Sousuke's machine were fighting beneath the night sky. Actually, to call it a fight wouldn't be quite accurate. Sousuke's machine seemed to be limited to running around, dodging the giant's attacks. He was weak, pitifully weak. No, she decided a moment later, the problem was the enemy's size. For something so big to move that fast, it just isn't fair. In fact, Sousuke must be pretty incredible to be able to dodge those attacks. She was terrifyingly close to the battle. Every movement of the machine generated a gust of wind that rustled her hair. The towering thing's every gesture sent rubble flying, storms raging, and earth shaking. Its every step kicked up a cloud of dust and dirt, obscuring her view of its back. I think we should go. It's too dangerous, shouted Kurtz, who had come with her. No, I need to get closer, Kaname insisted, though what she really wanted to do was turn around and run.
But you don't need to come with me, she shouted. Run if you want. You think I'd ever do something that lame?
Kurtz said, looking like he wanted to cry.
Then do what you want. Either way, I'm going. Aw, come on.
Choking on smoke, the two of them ran along the center's outer wall. The area around the staff entrance, where they'd been standing just a few seconds ago, was hit by a falling lump of concrete and smashed to smithereens. The Tachi roared through the air at the arbalest. The arbalest dodged, but it was pursued moments later by a sweep of machine gun fire. Sousuke winced as his machine took shots in the leg and chest. They were all at weak angles, and they didn't penetrate far, but they knocked the arbalest off balance. Taking advantage of the moment, the behemoth reached out with its free hand. I can't escape, Sousuke thought, and it was in that very moment that his machine's left arm was grabbed tight. Its armor began to creak and pop from the pressure. It's so powerful. Hoo, hoo. The behemoth laughed as it raised the arbalest up over its head. The G-forces were dizzying. Was it going to slam him against the ground? Not even this machine could withstand an impact like that. It would fly to pieces at the joints. Sousuke pointed his shot cannon at the giant's thumb and fired. Despite his proximity, that barrier manifested yet again, deflecting the shot. It was no use. In that case, out of better options, Sousuke turned the shot cannon toward the arbalest's own upper arm and pulled the trigger. He felt a jolt of impact as the rest of the machine tore away from the captive limb. Having earned its freedom by force, the arbalest crashed into the behemoth's shoulder before plummeting toward the ground below. Desperately working the movement control system, Sousuke managed to right his machine and land it feet first. Evaporated shock absorbent jetted like steam from the joints of its lower half. His AI rattled off a succession of damage warnings. From behind an orange trash can, Kaname desperately tried to get a glimpse of the giant's back. "Look out!" she wanted to shout, but it's not as if that would help him. Worrying and panicking could wait until she found something he could use. Where is it? Where? The giant's back was high above, and shards of metal were raining down. It was hard for her to keep her eyes open. The slanted armor on the behemoth's back was made of a series of blocks. Where was the cooling device? Cooling device? There's probably a hole or something for it, she thought. Kurtzkun, do you see a cooling device? She yelled.
There's a bunch of them, he said. Those long things, and the round ones.
A bunch of them. That did seem to be the case. There were countless small holes in the giant's back, 2 rows of them on either side of its spine, 2 long slits and 4 round holes. Which one is it? She wondered. The cooling device for the Lambda driver. What did that mean? If the Lambda driver needed cooling, and there was a hole for that, what was its weak point? Was that its weak point? Was he supposed to attack it? But which hole was it? There's no way to beat it, Sousuke realized. No blind spots. There's nothing I can do to make my shots effective. My drive system is severely damaged. I'm reaching my limit. I'm going to die here. Just as Sousuke thought that, Sousuke, can you hear me? Came a short-range communication. While keeping his attention focused on dodging, he said, Chidori? Okay, listen up. I don't totally understand it, but there should be a cooling device for that Lambda driver thing on its back. A cooling device? Of course, any machine would have one. And? He asked. And I think you should attack it, she told him. You think? That's all I know. Also, it can't be a normal attack. You need to use the Lambda driver. You have one, right? Did the Colonel say that? Sousuke asked suspiciously. What, Tessa? I don't know, but, I think so, Kaname said. Let's say that's what happened. Do you really expect me to... Just then, Sousuke realized it. Kaname and Kurtz were within arm's reach of him, squatting in front of the wall of the center. What were they doing in such a dangerous place? That moment's distraction was his undoing. The giant's kick came from the left side. The approaching leg consumed his vision. He couldn't dodge. It hit him. The arbalest traced a low arc in the direction of Kaname and Kurtz, and he hit the wall back first. He heard a scream. It had come from Kaname. Good, he thought. It didn't crush her. I didn't crush her. Sousuke's body was starting to go numb. His head was swimming. Alarms were ringing in the cockpit. In a corner of his vision, he could see Kurtz on the ground, shielding Kaname with his body. Ho, ho, ho. The behemoth was looking down at him. It had seen Kaname and Kurtz, too. He had no other choice now. If he withdrew, that monster would step on them. He'd just have to finish it. Chidori, which hole? He asked. Huh? The cooling device. He tried again. Which hole is it? It's... He could hear her gulp on the other side of the radio. The long slits. The right one or the left one. Either one will do. Just remember to attack using the lambda driver. This time, her voice was confident. The long slits. He remembered them. They were on the lower half of the back, close to the hips. They were downward facing, so it would be easy to take aim. The only question was whether he could invoke the lambda driver's power on command. All right. Sousuke picked his machine up and took a deep breath. Who give up? The behemoth, no, Takuma, said. There was something exhausted in the tone of his voice. Was he getting weaker? Time to die. The towering giant readied its tachi in both hands and swung it down at him with all its might. Sousuke dashed his machine forward, just barely dodging. A piece of his shoulder armor went flying. The behemoth's tachi hit the ground and snapped in half. The arbalest's charge continued. It scrambled low between the enemy's legs. It then threw itself down, face up, and slid along the ground on momentum alone. Sousuke turned the shot cannon upward and saw the monster's back beyond the barrel. The long slits, there they were. He aimed for the right side one, which was at an easier angle for him. Focus. That part was easy. Imagine pouring his will into the shot. That part was hard. Believing the shot would land, he'd just have to. Die! That wish was the most important thing. Focus. I just read that part. He fired. Just like the last time, the air around the arbalest warped. The shot went flying. As before, the behemoth's invisible wall activated, stopping it halfway. But the shell continued to struggle, inching forward. Then, as if flicked by a rubber band, it smacked the behemoth straight in the back. Shards of metal went flying. His shot had hit the slit dead center, making it through. It had gone in. Sousuke could hear something break down in the giant's body, but the damage looked minor from outside. It was hard to believe something so small could really harm the massive brute. Sousuke remained silent. For a few seconds, nothing happened. The arbalest and the behemoth both remained exactly where they were. And then... The asphalt beneath the behemoth's feet cracked, and the giant began to sink. It was as if gravity had finally caught up with it. Its right knee bent. Its ankles began to tremble, creak, and break. The arms it had moved so freely before suddenly dropped, as if yanked to the ground with chains. The skeleton and drive system screeched, and oil leaked from its joints. Armor plates began to break off here and there, dropping to the ground. The behemoth was beginning to crumble. It was the breaking of the hip joint that brought the house of cards tumbling. It crashed into the ground, blasting to pieces from the force. There was no explosion, but parts of the torso were on fire.
Dust, flames, and thick black smoke billowed everywhere, while smaller parts continued to clatter to the ground. That was that. An anticlimactic end.
I can't believe it.
Kaname's voice came through in a whisper. Sousuke said nothing, but glanced at the radio questioningly.
I said the long slit, but I was totally guessing. I can't believe it worked.
That was the last straw. Sousuke dropped his shot cannon in exhaustion. Rubbing her aching head, Talitha Testarossa left the exhibition center to find the behemoth already in pieces. She sighed in relief. She definitely hadn't counted on passing out there, but it looked as if Sousuke had made it through. Thanks to Chidori Kaname, her fellow whispered. She didn't like to admit it, but that girl was really something. The reason the behemoth had collapsed was quite simple. The Lambda driver's pseudo-string repulsor fields were all that was keeping it stable. Without that device in place, it would break down under its own weight. It was the same logic that caused whales to die immediately when they came up on land. The square cube law is a stone-cold son of a bitch, is the translation there. And the Lambda driver just kind of ignores that, or allows ignoring that to occur. Using the Lambda driver to reduce a thing's weight, she'd known such applications were possible, but Mithril lacked the exact know-how to make it happen. But to have a Lambda driver, which fed off of its operator's mental strength, operating continuously like that, it would require a truly special pilot. A dedicated pilot, with a mind strengthened through training and drugs. That was Takuma. But to use the system to support the machine's weight while also activating the barrier to keep enemy projectiles out, whatever entity had created the behemoth must have access to black technology on a level far beyond Mithril's. The arbalest was kneeling down before the giant's still flaming wreckage. A round capsule about the size of a K-car, the behemoth's cockpit shell, was lying in front of it. Sousuke must have pulled it from the remains. Kaname and the others were nearby as well.
Tessa, said Kurtz, the first to notice her. You sure you should be out here, after what you went through?
Positive. I'm just fine. Tessa waved a hand and walked up to the cockpit shell. Can you open it?
Sure, just stand back.
Kurtz pulled the gun off his belt and activated the shell's manual release lever. There was a popping sound a few seconds later as the shell burst open. Takuma was inside. He was lying right side down, enveloped by the spacesuit-like master suit that relayed its operator's movements.
He's still alive. What do we do?
Kurtz had a gun pointed at him, but Tessa, beside him, slowly pushed it down. She came close to the cockpit and crouched down. Takuma-san, Tessa said quietly, and Takuma's head moved a little.
I lost. Big sister. Why?
His voice seemed to be fading away. I told you, Sousuke began. Licking your chops in front of your prey is... You shut up! Kaname barked, interrupting his attempted lecture through the arbalest's external speakers. The white machine's shoulders slumped, and it fell silent. Tessa responded as if she hadn't heard any of it. You haven't lost. Sometimes these things happen.
It's too awful,
the boy moaned. Yes, it is, she agreed. It's quite terrible.
I don't have anything. I don't have anything now.
Tessa knelt down and touched Takuma's sweat-stained cheek. Then she looked down and whispered into his ear, It's all right, Takuma. I'm here with you.
Big sister.
I will always be with you.
You mean it?
He choked out. Yes. Now calm down and go to sleep.
Okay. I'm sorry.
Takuma closed his eyes. He never moved again. Tessa didn't cry. She knew that she wasn't a kind enough person for that. It had been an empty performance, meant purely to satisfy herself. And yet, she told herself, this was for the best. Let's see. She stood up, stretched, and looked all around. Well done, Weber-san. Your aim is true as ever.
Heh, no prob. Kurtz held up a hand. Then Tessa looked up at the arbalest. I've really made a lot of trouble for him tonight, she thought. But it was partly his own fault for bringing out her softer side. Well done, Sagara-san. Not at all, Colonel, Sousuke returned. That machine is yours now, she told him. Take care of it, would you? Yes, ma'am. The white AS saluted at first, then looked confused. Tessa offered no further explanation, but turned to face Kaname. And, Kaname-san, I need to offer you special thanks. Kaname folded her arms and snorted. If you want to thank me, I could use some explanations. I've got tons of questions, okay? I'm sure you do. I'll attempt to explain as best I can another day. Huh? Well, I'm tired too. Tessa spread her arms in another big stretch. But there is one thing I want to tell you. Tell me? While Kaname tilted her head, Tessa cast a glance at the arbalest. Sergeant Sagara, please shut off your audio sensors. That's an order. Sousuke stammered in confusion. Yes, ma'am. But he quickly did as he was told and shut the machine's sensors off. Now that he couldn't hear them, Tessa walked up to Kaname and whispered, It appears I've fallen in love with him. Huh? I wanted to tell you, let's both do our best, Kaname-san, Tessa said, then smiled in amusement. It was a smile appropriate to a girl her age, lacking any trace of ill will. Huh? I... While Kaname stood there, flabbergasted, Tessa turned away and just started walking. Now, let us withdraw. I've heard that Kalainen-san and the others are all right. On the roof of a building a kilometer from the decimated International Exhibition Center stood two men, watching through binoculars. I feel a chill, one of the men whispered, as though it was an early summer night. I really thought he'd get a bit further, the other man said. He had round glasses that sat snugly on his round nose. Well, we'd basically given a toy to a Boy Scout. We never should have gotten our hopes up. Still, it's such a waste. 2 cruises' worth of budget down the drain in 15 minutes. It's absurd. What were the higher-ups thinking? Don't be so down. We got the data as well as video, and it's drastically increased public anxiety. We also got to see all its drawbacks. Amalgam doesn't need that machine. Perhaps not, the man chuckled. And there were other unexpected benefits. The man with the round glasses furrowed his brow. Benefits? Yes, another laugh. I got to see my beloved darling and his girlfriend again. The other man was silent. I'll have to say hello to them soon. Yes, I'll give them quite the greeting. With a bright smile, the man left the roof, trailing his artificial leg behind. Who were those mysterious figures? I actually don't remember who one of them is, but one of them I definitely do. Epilogue.
It's a familiar face.
The battle in Ariake City. The mysterious giant AS that had run amok and self-destructed. The beyond repair destruction of the Tokyo Big Site. The involvement of the JSDF. Those topics were all over the morning news, so there was a fair share of discussion of them in class. Still, they also had a test coming up. They didn't have time to just gossip all day. Excuse me. Classmates were busy showing each other printouts about test questions, lending each other notebooks, and fervently studying vocabulary lists. Tokiwa Kyoko could usually expect Kaname to be her study buddy at times like these, but things weren't quite going as planned today.
Hey, Kana-chan, hey!
Kaname was passed out on her desk, and Kyoko was shaking her as hard as she could.
Yesterday you said you'd help me with my English. Come on, wake up!
Ugh, please, just a few more minutes. Noting Kaname's lack of cooperation, Kyoko sagged.
darn it. Did you pull an all-nighter studying last night? Well, I didn't get any sleep, that's for sure, Kaname groaned, but I also didn't do any studying. Then what were you doing? Fighting. Oh, sure. Fine then. Forget it. Don't help me. Kyoko switched gears immediately. Hey, Sakata-kun! She approached Sousuke, who had grown up abroad, meaning he was fluent in English, in the hopes that he would help her instead. He was sitting in a corner of the classroom, arms folded, stock still. Sakata-kun? He said nothing. His eyes were fixed ahead. Hey! No reaction. Kyoko waved a hand in front of his face, but Sousuke didn't even seem to see it. She leaned a little closer and noticed that his breathing was quiet and regular. No way! She whispered. He was sleeping with his eyes open. The reminder that such freakish abilities existed caused sweat to bead on Kyoko's forehead. Okay, everyone, take your seats. Class is about to start. The classroom door opened, and their teacher, Kagurazaka Eri, came in. The students hurried to take their seats. They stood, then bowed. Kagurazaka Eri seemed in high spirits today. Good morning, everyone, she said cheerfully. It's a dangerous world out there, but at times like these, it's best to focus on our studies. Now, it's the last class before the test. Let's all give it our best. Open your textbooks to page 61. They were going to review all of the material to be tested. The students all quickly opened their textbooks. Even Kaname, with great difficulty, managed to execute the task. Only Sousuke remained silent, arms folded, desk empty, staring vacantly ahead of them. Eri noticed immediately. Oh, Sakara-kun, did you forget your textbook? Silence. What's wrong? She asked in concern. Answer me. Silence. Sakara-kun? Silence. What? Don't glare at me like that! With a slight wince, Eri walked up to Sousuke's desk. Sakara-kun, are you refusing to participate in my class? If you have a problem with me, I'll try hard to fix it, but this behavior... Silence. This behavior, it's a little excessive, don't you think? Silence. Please say something, Sakara-kun. Please. Silence. Half in tears, Eri pounded the desk hard with her textbook. Sakara-kun! Sousuke snapped awake, and then into action. He leaped out of his seat, pulled a pistol from his hip holster, grabbed the teacher by the neck, dragged her to the floor, pressed the gun to her head, and... Kaname leaped in from the side with a flying kick, knocking him out cold. If not for Kyoko's quick reassurances, Eri would probably have run out of the room crying. The end. And then we have an afterword. So sorry for the wait. Sousuke and Kaname are going about their usual peaceful, lives at Jindai High when they're attacked again by a powerful enemy. Almost all of this volume took place in the city, and over the course of one day. I hope you enjoy Rampaging One Night Stand, the second story of the long-form adventure-style Full Metal Panic! Series. I think character is highlighted more in this story compared to the last one. The plot itself may be less complex because of that, but I still ended up with a tome that's far more than 300 pages. That's very thick. I was originally aiming for 260, but strange how things happen. Authors are timid creatures. We worry that our books won't sell if they're too thick. But Fighting Boy Meets Girl certainly sold, thanks to all of you, of course. So I can rest easy knowing I don't need to worry. Most booksellers ended up short on stock, and I kept hearing, "I can't find your book," and getting scolded for that. Sorry to everyone who had to search around for Fighting. As for other things to write, I can't think of anything. I have no other choice but to call in a guest. It's our protagonist, Sagara Sousuke. Let's give him a round of applause. You need me for something? Yes, say something interesting for me. Very well. I will compare the proposals by Lockheed and Boeing in the development of America's latest Joint Strike Fighter, currently undergoing trials. Please don't. In that case, I'll explain why the AS's head-mounted machine guns use depleted uranium rounds, since they are also used to intercept ATMs. Stop. Shall I tell you about the incredible Korean marine torture techniques that I heard from an acquaintance returning from Vietnam? You know what? Never mind. Forget it. You can go. It's true that I've received no training in the art of conversation, but I can listen. Tell me a story about yourself.
About myself. Actually, 2 days ago was Valentine's Day. I got chocolate from fans and from people in the Fujimi editorial department. It made me happy.
I see.
But it was all brought to me by my supervisor, S-san, when we met up for idea discussions. S-san is a woman, and there was no chocolate from her.
I see.
All I needed was some obligation chocolate. I still felt a little lonely.
I don't understand why you want chocolate so much, but this editor of yours will probably be the first to read these lines. She'll recognize that you're calling her out.
Yeah, but yesterday when I told her I can't think of an idea for an epilogue, she said, "Why not write about what's going on in your life, like about Valentine's?" And she was grinning.
She sounds like a splendid woman.
You don't understand the sensitivities of a man's heart. Darn it, I'm feeling sad.
Not that it matters, but speaking to you reminds me of Kurtz.
Pop. Don't compare me to that idiot.
I expect he'd say the same thing.
Pop. By the way, what is that pop thing you keep doing?
I'm eating chocolate.
Chocolate? Who gave it to you?
Tell me! I cannot. I was asked not to.
Huh. I think I can guess. And I'm sure she insisted it was obligation chocolate, too. Sweating.
How did you know?
Ah, we're out of pages. I don't know why I looked at my watch there. I'll be asking for all of your support while I write my next manuscript. Thank you all again. Bows. See you next time for another round of Sousuke in Hell. Shouji Gatou, February 1999. And next week, we will start the third volume, third book, which is entitled Full Metal Panic, Trembling into the Blue. So yeah, that is the second volume in which the capabilities and scope of what the Lambda driver is capable of are expanded on. What is becoming abundantly clear is that it just doesn't really care about the rules, which is kind of the point. But Sousuke is a character who's like, the rules are everything. So it's the dichotomy there, where you've got a guy in a gritty, realistic military setting who now has to be thrust into a high school rom-com as well as a hot-blooded, willpower-based fighting robot series. It's funny. You see, it's comedy. He's a fish out of water. But yeah, I'm quite pleased with the idea of that. The behemoth is just basically a giant metal brick that only works at all because the Lambda driver is being used constantly in order to keep it just light and not massy enough to implode under its own girth. I find that very, very charming. If you're going to have something like a mass canceller or an inertialess drive or something, or inertial canceller, you do goofy stuff with it like this. That's my jam. I find that very, very entertaining. We will see more of the behemoth in future. I did not. What was it? The Type 96. Let me see if I can find an image for that real quick. What is the Type 96 called? It's not the Savage 2, is it? It might be the Savage 2. Give me a sec. Let me just double check here. Gotta flip over to chapter 5 again. Nope, that's too far. No choice. I'm part. Blah, 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 blah. Oh, nope, too far. Because I think they show up again, so I'll have to grab the... here we go. Type 96s.
Here we go. They're also cuties, like the Savage. They're kind of squat looking. They look very much like a something out of Front Mission. Not the Frost. The head's wrong for the Frost, but kind of this chunky, squat torso, thick legs, blocky shoulder pads, and arms that descend from them. I think they're kind of cute. Very, very comfy design for me, for whatever reason, for what that's worth. So it's a cutie. Yep. So that's it for this one. We do have a whole nother book, which we'll get through. We'll start that next week. I'm trying to remember which one that one is. Oh, this one's cute. This kind of expands on, if this is the one I think it is. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. This one kind of expands on our lesser cast members. I think this is the one where Mardukas has a bit of a showcase, as well as yeah, Mardukas and then a bunch of the supporting staff on the Tuach Dedanen get showcased. I like this one as a fleshing out the world and the people in it kind of installment. This one's pretty good. There's one or two of those. It's pretty laid back in terms of action sequences. So if that's the only reason you're here, this one's not going to feed you as much. But there's a couple in there. I give Shouji Gatou a lot of credit, even when he's like, okay, I am doing broader plot arcs. He's and trying to like play the long game and make this a sustainable storytelling engine. He's also doing a good job of giving you entertaining stories throughout. They're just quite good at what they do. I'm pretty pleased. I'm generally pleased with the translation as well. It flows pretty well. It uses the honorifics, which throws me when I'm having to read it aloud because I think it sounds goofy to read them aloud, but that's because I'm an Amerikansky and I don't have the same sensibilities and need to do them. I don't edit them out because there's no point. I'll read it. It's there. It makes me feel like a goober doing it, but we do it anyway. It's the text as presented. Aside from any hiccups or flaws, which are entirely my own. And then, mostly glossing over whatever textual question marks I have in terms of, oh, you decided just not to have a participle there. That's cool. I'm going to assume I know what's going on. There's only a couple of those, but there's enough of them that I'm like, it could have used one more pass by an editor. Just to skim through it and be like, oh, okay. No misspellings, though, which is good. So their spell check worked. Again, nothing as drastic as what was happening in Armor, where it's like, oh, there's like an entire paragraph and a half and a few lines afterwards that are just repeated for no reason. What's going on there? I don't know what that was. I don't have a more recent edition of Armor to check it against, so I don't know. Anyway, this week, later on this week for Wednesday, tentatively, we are still on for Down Below Station by CJ Sherry to get that started. And Friday, we'll be reading more of The Lazarus Effect. Probably 3 more streams of that, I'm guessing. Probably 3. Maybe 2. No, 3. 3. 3? Where's my bookmarks? Where are my bookmarks located? 3 more, yes. Very good. Anyway, hope people enjoyed. I had fun. Man, it is dismal outside. At least it's not pouring down like it was earlier, but it's just kind of dank and gross. Yeah, with that, I will seize y'all later. Stay safe, stay sane, be decent to each other. Until next time.